Before we jump in, the name shows up at the top of the screen. Then the story kicks off with a dead bear sprawled right in front of Dr. Gordon. And he's left utterly stunned by what he sees, because when he looks back, it's revealed that 3 months ago he rescued Mizuki Kasaka after finding her in the forest, and when they went hunting for honey, they ran straight into a bear, and Mizuki killed it. It shattered apart in one clean, razor-precise strike, proving her power was way beyond anything he could have imagined. As the cart rattles along, Mizuki suddenly jerks her head up and demands Dr. Gordon stop, right now, leaving him to wonder if the motion is making her feel sick. But she climbs down, steadies herself, and tells them calmly, "I'm fine," and that's when two men come barreling in at full speed toward them. Dr. Gordon squints, completely baffled, and demands what's happening. Then Mizuki shoots back fast, saying they're the king's knights because Judd. In the middle of all this chaos, they're getting hunted down and pushed straight toward them. Moments later, the knights are down on their knees, begging for help and swearing they'll pay, then Ms. And Mizuki's jaw drops when both of them immediately duck behind her like it's the most normal thing ever, because in her head, she's still expecting the grand entrance of the gallant knights, so what in the world is this embarrassing mess supposed to be? The knights rushed in, breathless, and insisted they were stuck in the middle of a mission that mattered more than anything. But Mizuki whips them with a hard glare and snaps if they really think a civilian will be their shield. Then one of them stammers that his instincts are screaming she's the strongest one in the room. Right there, just as the moment hit, Mizuki's pursuers snapped and threw knives at them, streaking through the air. Bucky effortlessly snaps her power into motion, hurling the blades back at the attackers while slamming up a solid wall between them, and you can practically see their confidence crumble. So when they realize brute strength won't cut it, they shift gears to magic to take her down, but right before they can move, every single one of them snaps into a full stop, frozen solid completely. Mizuki freezes him with a grim look, then flashes a tiny smirk, like, "We didn't think you'd hit us with magic, huh?" And while she admits they're all insufferable, she's going to start with the ones who totally failed to spot her as the real threat, so she might as well unleash that new magic on them right now, tell them to brace themselves. The attackers start screaming their chant like it'll hit first, but Mizuki just strolls in and asks, "Did you really miss the part where she doesn't even have to cast?" No chanting needed, she just flicks her power, and they get blasted backward with crushing force. The attackers freeze in utter shock, because they can't wrap their heads around the fact she's using silent magic. Magic hit her, and even the knight itself seemed to stare back as disbelief crashed in. She cast a spell without chanting, which is straight up impossible by every normal rule. Mizuki figures air magic might not be as flashy as fire or water, but it's wickedly practical, and with a calm breath, she whispers to herself that her air gun magic is finally, officially done with everything. As the attackers lay sprawled and helpless on the ground, she fumes at how those knights think they're above civilians, demanding blind obedience, then snaps her gaze up at them with a sharp. Shoots them a question if they want a quick chat, and the fear hits so hard it leaves them shaking. Terrified out of their minds, the knights crumpled to their knees and begged for mercy. But Mizuki shoves their heads down hard into the dirt, and she reminds everyone that knights are supposed to be top-tier warriors, built to protect people and steer their squad, and then she lays it out. In her own guild, knights are the reliable tank specialists, and if anyone dares betray that trust or shirk the responsibility of the role, they'll face the consequences, until Dr. Gordon finally steps in and snaps it's enough. After that, they hogtie the attackers to a tree, then stare at each other like, "Okay, so what do we do about these burritos?" Dr. Gordon shrugs and tells them to just walk away from the attackers, saying there are beasts out there anyway, so they could lose an arm or a leg, but the knights scramble to protest, shouting that if they're not handled the right way, these troublemakers will return and strike again, and the way they act screams one thing: they're mercenaries chasing pay. Mizuki stays cool and suggests they don't just slaughter these guys. First, they'll break their strength enough to squeeze out the confession and uncover who hired them in the first place. Still, the knights can't hide how rattled they are, fully haunted by that sudden ambush, until Dr. Gordon steps in and tells them to stop taking Mizuki's warnings so seriously, because they're already safely inside the town's protective wards. When they finally hit Lagos Village, the whole vibe flips, villagers pour in cheering like it's a festival, while the knights awkwardly grip the bear they hauled back, flashing huge relief that Mizuki made it home safe with a catch worth its weight in gold. Mizuki decides to hand the bear skin to Mel's grandmother, and the woman gushes her gratitude nonstop, while Mel's grandfather grins warmly and says she's the kind of person who can survive anywhere. Then the whole story snaps back 3 months, right to the day Mizuki, an adult woman who lived for games, got yanked into another world at the very end of a brutally gloomy Monday. When they press Mizuki about her silent magic, she snaps back that in her original world there's no magic at all, so what she's doing isn't some crazy otherworldly power. Then Dr. Gordon steps in and clarifies that her silent magic. Magic here isn't some random miracle. It's basically a hand-me-down read of the natural laws from her own world, and the real big deal is this. People who invent and build their own original magic system are treated as something far beyond ordinary users, which is exactly why magic matters so much. And out of respect, they don't get called mages at all. They're treated like mages. Magicians, Dr. Gordon tells the knights that Mizuki couldn't find a way back home, so she decided to start over, living quietly in this village, until that's exactly how everyone ended up here, with the questioning only just beginning. Those questions from the bumbling knights just set the stage for the disaster about to hit, until, out of nowhere, a kid bursts outside yelling that the White Knight has arrived, and sure enough, he's here. Mizuki looks up and spots a man riding in on a horse. His presence alone freezes the villagers. Then he swings down from the saddle, and his stunning beauty yanks every eye in the crowd toward him. Mizuki can't resist thinking the two knights need to actually see what a real knight looks like, so she shoots them a razor-sharp glare as they fidget, and finally confess they're just the advanced crew meant to go ahead. Dr. Gordon looks up as the man steps in, greets him like old friends, and tells him it's been way too long. Then the moment stretches on as he continues. And Dr. Gordon presses, "Did you really send him?" He nods hard and says the prince personally ordered him to come, then his eyes. Then the scene snaps to Mizuki, and the man wheels around, asking if she's the lady they were talking about. Dr. Gordon nods, and Argent drops to his knee with effortless grace, kisses her hand, and introduces himself, saying she can call him Gent. The moment Mizuki locks eyes with him, her brain basically short-circuits. This guy radiates full-on anime protagonist energy, and she instantly tags him as a dangerously sexy knight. Argent smiles politely and tells Mizuki she must let him escort her to the prince's castle for her own safety, but Mizuki shoots him down, hard. And with a cocky grin on his face, he tells her not to worry, swearing right then and there that he'll protect her with every ounce of strength, even though her real worry has nothing to do with danger and everything to do with the village's vicious spite. Envious gaze burns through her, straight from every woman in town. They hiss and gossip like Mizuki stole something precious, and they keep muttering that she's taking a handsome knight, while they're left watching in jealousy, asking why she gets him first. The older women don't even hold back, joking that if Mizuki doesn't want him, they'll happily take him off her hands, and somehow those stares hit harder than any villain Mizuki has faced so far. She couldn't take it anymore, so she snapped her head away and claimed she was just going to fetch water. She tells herself this calm, peaceful village life is exactly what she's after, and that's why she refuses to take that troublesome night route, packed with drama and endless obligations. Argent glares as she walks off, irritation sparking in his chest, convinced this mission should have been easy if only he could win her heart, while he tells himself over and over that he's got zero plans to let a single real feeling for her ever take root. Dr. Gordon shoots him a dry warning not to say stuff like that where his fangirls can hear, and Argent snaps back, ice cold, that anyone who doesn't measure up to his ideals is worthless. Yet Dr. Gordon just can't. This is an imperial order he can't afford to botch, while Mizuki keeps her head down, chasing nothing but survival, using her gifts just to live quietly, so Argent presses Dr. Gordon, asking if he's scared the prince will exploit someone this rare, which throws Dr. Gordonov's guard off just long enough for him to snap out and blurt Argent's name and Argent just smiles and says he'll be careful, because even admitting he'd have to drag her back by force would already crush him with guilt. Meanwhile, Mizuki is calmly pouring water when Argent comes striding in. He barrels back in and demands a word with her, calling her Lady Mizuki right away, only to light a fuse in her chest as she snaps that she never asked for that title, and he chuckles softly, telling her, "You're surprisingly harsh." He turns on the charm and asks if she'd ever want castle life, but she shuts him down. She's perfectly happy in her village, so he throws out one tempting lure after another. Elegant dresses, lavish feasts, canopy beds, devoted maidservants, and every time she rejects it fast, saying she's not into dresses, she'd rather cook for herself. Large beds don't work for her, and servants would only make her bored. The second he blurts that she could even have the love of a knight, her patience snaps like a rubber band, and she instantly realizes he's not getting the hint, so she decides it's time to shut him down for real. She drops the water basket, but before she can even step back, Argent yanks her in clothes and flashes that sweet smile while his gaze burns, insisting this charm is made just for her, and if she won't fall for him on her own, maybe he should take it by force. Mizuki. Loki yanks his arm right away and blurts out that after being tossed into a strange world, She refuses to let anyone control her. She says it like a final warning, adding with a razor-sharp smirk, she declares, just like that, that she's all she has left, and she tightens. She clamped down with crushing force, so hard he yelped in agony, and the chaos instantly pulls the knights and Dr. Gordon sprinting toward them. But when he rushes in, Arjun is slumped on the ground. Then Mizuki coldly says she knows plenty of girls would swoon at this kind of stunt, yet she finds it not romantic at all, just creepy. Argent gas snaps at him, telling him straight up it's time to get out. She begs for her words to land like knives, ferocious eyes blazing as they deliver sweet hits that slice straight into him, leaving the other knights stunned at the way he's recounting the attack. And then, right when everyone's bracing for the worst, Argent suddenly grins and turns red, openly admiring her strength and fire. Without warning, he rockets forward, wraps her in a hug, and pleads, begging her to let him court her, no matter his duty. Duty's clinging to her like a lifeline even as she fights to break free, swearing he's never wanted anyone this bad, and vowing he's not letting go, Even while Mizuki yanks him along with pure brute force, he refuses to budge, sticking to her like glue, showing up everywhere, and even trying to feed her, grinning the whole time as he swears the food is delicious. Argent keeps on tailing her like a shadow, then even tries to sneak after Mizuki into the house, only for her to slam the door shut and crunch his fingers hard, lock it tight, and turn on Dr. Gordon, demanding he fix this mess right now. Through the door, Argent won't stop calling her his ideal lady, and the disgust makes Mizuki's skin crawl, so she snaps to Dr. Gordon, stunned, asking if he even knows what kind of man this is. Dr. Gordon calmly lays it out. Argent is a really sad dude who's only truly happy when someone stronger than him takes control. Leaving Mizuki utterly speechless as Dr. Gordon insists that sure, Arjun comes from a proper family, and yeah, if you just look past his weird fetishes, he's honestly a pretty decent guy. That pep talk does nothing for Mizuki's mood, and she only gets even. More and more irritated, she decides she has to vanish for a while, just to get away from him. By the window, she's just standing there when Argent suddenly appears on the other side, locks eyes with her, and glares so hard it sends chills down her spine, so she snaps back that she's seriously annoyed. He gulps, admits this mess is brutal, but he's got one shot at stopping it for good. Mizuki snaps the curtains shut to hide Argent, and while she listens, Dr. Gordon tells her she can appeal straight to the prince, the knight S. Mizuki blinks in total shock, shouts back, and when she sees their reaction, she starts to wonder if this game isn't as impossible as people claim, until it finally clicks. If she wants to keep living in peace, she's got no choice. She has to go meet that prince, and she can't stop thinking about it. Even if her wish comes true, she'll still be stuck with that haunting feeling, like she's living proof of another world, and if that miserable knight keeps tracking her down, she knows she can't stay in this village anymore, so it's painfully obvious. This quiet life of hers is about to get ripped away, and before she even leaves, she makes sure to remind. The villagers beg her to treat the city water with care, then they choke back tears and promise to do the same, sending her off with heartfelt wishes for the best. Dr. Gordon confesses he's crushed to say goodbye, and Mizuki nods in the same heartbreak, because they backed her up every step until she could stand on her own. Before she even mentions that things are finally starting to move, she shoots Argent a sharp glare and blurts that she can't wait to meet the master of that thing, while Dr. Gordon watches her and quietly realizes just how terrifyingly strong she really is. Mizuki finally steps into the capital city, staring up at the endless skyline like she's seeing an entire world unfold, too massive, too dazzling, and it knocks the breath right out of her. Dr. Gordon, her guardian, pushed her to come, and now the moment is here, her real self standing in all this splendor. The real reason he said yes was simple and maddening. He wanted to finally do something about that nightmare masochist, Argent, on the way. Dr. Gordon leans in and warns her. The prince waiting for her is a hard-nosed pragmatist, so don't waste a single tear, because emotional begging will get her nowhere, and instead. So she has to win him over with logic, prove she'll be unstoppable in the future, even if she's still a beginner right now, and promise that if she succeeds, the prince will finally gain a protector he can trust. Ms. S. Lucky clocks it instantly, because the prince isn't chasing romance or words at all. He's demanding real proof that she's worth every effort and resource he'll risk to protect her, Standing outside the audience chamber, she freezes until Argent practically pushes her in, because the prince is waiting, and she gulps her fear before stepping forward. She steals her courage and swings the door open. The prince greets her with perfect manners, calls her an otherworld mage, and then introduces himself, Illusion, the second prince of the Elfina kingdom. Mizuki can't even blink. He's the living definition of a textbook prince, so flawless it almost feels unreal. Perfectly composed, so flawless it feels unreal, and as it hits her, she shivers, realizing his beauty is straight-up angelic, yet it comes with a crushing, intimidating aura pins her in place. Argent can't miss it, he's on a whole other level, and when Argent nervously asks His Highness tells him to tone it down a bit, and the prince just laughs that her cowering reaction is downright adorable, leaving. Mizuki froze when someone called him cute, then his brain flipped the switch. Oh no, this isn't just bullying, this is Demon King level evil. The prince grins and shrugs off the title like it's happened before, while Argent lays it out. He was born brimming with internal magic that makes everyone around him buckle without even realizing it. For Mizuki, it hits like she's staring down a real boss monster, and the more she watches him, the more she's convinced she's finally found the final boss of this world. The prince stays cool as ice, asks Mizuki if she wants him to shut down Argent's harassment, then he smooths. Moody pushes things further and asks what she'd do for him in return, and Mizuki snaps into it instantly. This is the exact moment she's been craving. In her head, she's already planning her escape, win this quest, dump that snowy pervert for good, and finally lock in her safety, even if the mission fights back because there's no backing out. She tells the prince, if you truly think I can help, then I'm in. She's ready to try, and that's when he smirks, then tells her straight up that a friend from a neighboring country is in deep trouble, and he needs her help, because this is exactly the kind of job her abilities were made for. Once he declares it settled, he orders her into fresh clothes and snaps, is everything ready? And the maid fires back, yes, right away, leaving. Mizuki is left utterly flustered as she insists she can fix this on her own, but the maid just barrels ahead, no hesitation, no pause, then afterward. Mizuki couldn't stop herself. Did she really need to speak up about how they somehow nailed her exact size? And a knight boldly insists his numbers are always spot on, until she cuts him off instantly, calling out that he never measured a thing, and that his compliment is nothing but a jab. The prince then points him out and calls him Raven Knight Klaus, saying he mostly runs covert intelligence development, and Klaus bluntly tells Mizuki he's tracked every move she's made since she stepped into the capital, and Mizuki's stomach drops with a silent groan. Great, another stalker, as Klaus storms off. He shrugs off the work like it's a game, saying tracking information isn't just his job, it's his favorite hobby, and that fact makes her want to grind her teeth even harder. Then the prince lays it all out. Her enchanted gear is so valuable it could buy a noble's estate, because the Black Knight has zero taste for profit, and she immediately starts rattling off what each piece does. The necklace is a transmitter, its reach stretching with how much magic she pumps out. The dress shields her from little blade cuts, and the rings on her right hand guard her against poison, nullification, healing magic, magical barriers, and even physical barriers. Mizuki cracks a joke that with this many top-tier items, the prince must be setting her up for absolute hell, but Klaus. He cuts in and tells her, first things first, memorize every enchanted item's functions and how to use them, no exceptions. Elsewhere, Argent cornered the prince and grilled him about whether he planned to hand Mizuki severance of some kind. The prince shoots back that training her in how nations twist the truth is the smart move, and that once this lesson is done, she'll have no choice but to get pulled into the mess. Then Argent can't quite hide the unease on her face, and meanwhile, Mizuki snaps her eyes open to a weird sparkle as magic surges into her hands, flickering into a faint glow right in front of her face. Paws trembling with confusion, she snaps to attention when nearby kids cheer that she's got magic, but they can't get her to make a real light orb, and suddenly she realizes the auto-translation must have butchered how she pronounced it. She tries snapping her fingers to fix it, but instead of a glowing orb, it starts raining out of nowhere, dripping straight through the scene, and the kids immediately shiver, grumble, and complain as Mizuki freezes, staring in horror at her own palm while water streams down her hand. She blinks, breathless, and insists she only imagined gathering the water vapor in the air. Then she yanks Dr. Gordon over on the spot to check it. And even he has to admit this is something that should be impossible, so he pushes for more analysis, especially after she claims she can control it at will. Then he fires back, did you chant at all? And she answers with total confidence, no, not at all. The whole kitchen got torched to the ground, and she could only laugh nervously. She really thought fire magic would do the job, until she learned the brutal truth that tweaking spells without scorching everything nearby is way harder than she ever guessed. Then the woman in charge waved the disaster off like it was nothing and calmly told Mizuki to show her her arm. After the farm work wrapped up, Mizuki whipped up a mouthwatering feast and practically beckoned everyone to dig in, smiling as she hoped the flavor hit just right, while the villagers swarmed in, giddy with excitement to taste something made by a true outsider from another world. Later, when the woman said a real wife should know how to kill and butcher her own catches, Mizuki stumbled out an awkward reply, like it was basically just fish, caught somewhere between embarrassment Embarrassment and amusement hit her at the same time, and right here in the same village she'd talk people through her plan, leave an enemy alive and they'll crawl back for another attack. So instead of slaughtering them, she'd break them down, squeeze out the truth, and force them to spill who hired them, and that's how she uncovered the mine. Mizuki kept a practical mindset that never turned cruel, and with the truth sinking in that going back home might never happen, she quietly decided to live right here, building a life that felt fun, cozy, and genuinely good for herself, not just drifting through. Scraping through one day at a time, that mindset was the heartbeat of this other world, and it shaped everything it made. Before her journey to the capital even starts, Maid is already there, watching everything. Later, the prince admits he expected a perfect genius with no rough edges, but then Mizuki shocks him with how diligent and hardworking she is, and he swears she reminds him of someone he knows. Mizuki, meanwhile, thinks to herself, if this is the prince's recommendation, then she has no reason to refuse moving. He nods in total calm, then says, if we can become friends, maybe this hell won't stay so hellish after all, and maybe it'll leave a mark that's real. Enjoy it. 10 days later, Mizuki finally tracks down. She winds up deep in the forest, gripping a snap tree branch like it's her only hope, staring down a wolf that growls and barks at her, and as panic screams through her, she scrambles to flee thinking. She bitterly realizes this feels like some awful game she never agreed to play, and then the nightmare kicks in. She stumbles, drops to the ground, utterly spent, and in that brutal second, she's convinced she's seconds from dying, which leaves Dr. Gordon frozen in shock at how worn down she looks. A void traveler, a person ripped out from another world, is treated like gold here, because their outsider knowledge and skills are basically living treasures, and everyone wants a piece of that, so reports of otherworlders pop up now and then, and Mizuki is no exception. That snap of clarity hits hard. Those black-clad attackers weren't random at all. They were hunting the power she thought she had, even though the only real magic she believes she can do is her auto-translated language spell, right after. Even after that, a man steps in and introduces himself as Rudolph. He's from Severist, and he quickly apologizes for catching her off guard, asking for her help so suddenly. Meanwhile, Mizuki thinks to herself that compared to the Demon King-like prince, Rudolph feels way less intimidating, looks exhausted, and even has pretty average features. She tries to corner the prince for answers, but he shuts her down, says he purposely left everything vague, and that it makes way more sense for her to get the truth straight from the person in the middle of it, and Rudolph nods like, yeah, that actually checks out, before heading off. He locked eyes with her, wore a grim face, and flat out demanded she become his concubine, then ordered her to slip into his harem. Arm and destroy it from the inside, Mizuki freezes in pure shock and when he tells her she can just play along as a concubine if it makes things simpler, and asks if it would really bother her, she snaps to realization. She realizes this isn't even the real thing that's freaking her out, until the prince, casually like it's nothing, drops the bomb that Rudolph is actually the king of Severus, and Mizuki seethes inside. Why wasn't she told this sooner? Earlier, the prince leans in with total confidence and says the king himself will back her up, so tell Mizuki to move first and tear the harem apart. The moment that pseudo-demon lord says it, Mizuki's skin prickles like blood rain is about to fall any second. She tries to wrap her head around it all, then lays out the plan in one breath, rough up the concubines, kick them out, but she's quick to warn that it's exactly the kind of move people would twist into accusing her of a crime. Rudolph snaps back coldly that he'll personally smash every accusation, leaving her convinced this king is way harsher than he ever lets on. He tells her the so-called harem is a nest of vipers, pretty faces, cold stares, and anyone outside a handful of powerful clans gets treated like dirt. Then he admits that if one of them ever had his child, he'd honestly be terrified for his life, because sure, they dress stunningly and flirt like they mean it, but he has no clue what they're really plotting behind his back. And Mizuki can't stop herself from wondering what those women could have done to make the king this paranoid. Paranoid and awkward, he blurts out whether, as king, he can just handle the mess himself, until the prince snaps back that the noble families involved are a dangerous leftover from the era of a clueless late king, the kind that would riot if you touch them the wrong way, and that cracking down in the right places is, in the end, part of a monarch's duty. Mizuki. Monarchy can only admit that status alone doesn't always win, and Rudolph goes quiet for a second as he mutters that he's seriously toying with scrapping the monarchy and starting a democracy, while the prince just stares, shocked at how openly a king can complain to a complete stranger. Mizuki gets it, though, because royal bloodlines don't stop at borders, and with so many outsiders chasing legitimacy, dropping the monarchy would hand neighboring powers the perfect excuse to invade, leaving the country overrun the moment it tries to go democratic. She blurts out that it sounds wildly irresponsible, unless he's secretly plotting to turn himself into some kind of revolutionary hero, and that's when Rudolph jumps in. He quit glamorizing heroic tales the moment he turned 5, and once you're responsible for a country, you can never afford to gamble that big. Instead, he's setting his sights on the throne, where he'll ruthlessly wipe out everyone he thinks is poisoning his country. She clenches her fist, convinced he's all in, then Mizuki suddenly snaps, "Hey." Rudolph's name came out of his mouth, and he demanded to know if Rudolph had been eating right. Then he went to place. He slides a steaming bowl of soup in front of him and snaps that he looks pale, his hands ice cold, because when your body and soul feel frozen, warm chowder slips in and melts the tension. It's a creamy milk-based clam chowder packed with vegetables, and the instant Rudolph takes his first bite, his eyes blow wide with pure shock, then by the second bite. But the moment he gets hooked, he demolishes that soup in the bun in one non-stop gulp, no hesitation at all. He lets it slip that it was delicious, then admits his meals have been getting served cold for years because his poison taster is always hovering nearby, because it's not just poison he's been dealing with, but sleeping powder too, and even aphrodisiacs mixed in for good measure. They slipped it into his food, and there was no getting out of it. Then, almost in a whisper, he admits it's been ages since he's had a warm meal, and joy finally breaks through. Several days later, they're standing inside the transport circle, and the prince starts to speak. Right then, the next move begins. He tells Mizuki that when she comes back, he'll make sure she can live under his protection, and he pushes her to go all in on this mission. She flashes a confident grin and vows she'll wipe out the enemy, then adds that she'll make sure Rudolph gets 3 proper meals every single day. Rudolph practically lights up with gratitude, even though she's only taking him an elfin home, and the prince cuts in fast. She's not being shipped as a personal chef, as they. Prince declares it's finally time to end the harem and sets out on the journey she finds. She finally reaches Sylvest Castle, and the king ushers her in with a calm, steady hand. Then, when she asks if they're slipping through the back door, he tells her it's the only way to dodge the nosy nobles watching from every corner, prompting Mizuki to blurt a joke that she really must be a subordinate, even while she's undercover as a concubine. Then she hustles her straight into the inner. She storms out of the palace and freezes, speechless, as the grounds hit her, an artificial hill, fountains that spill like magic, and he stared at the gardens in awe, muttering that they were unbelievable, then just shrugged it all off like it meant nothing special, and he casually told her everything was put back just for her, and when she asked if she could use every room, he said, with Elfina backing him, she'd been officially invited as a lady, which doubles as her cover, yet the status list still labels her as the lowest-ranking courtesan, something she shrugs off with a grin and swears she's ready to prowl, and as a sign, she hands him a friendship gift on the spot, a tiny pendant that lets her communicate telepathically, then points out it matches her bracelet, which can heal poison, break poison, and even throw up barriers, and the sheer shock leaves him frozen at the sink. One bracelet can cram in a ridiculous number of enchantments, so when he demands the price and flat out says his life isn't something she can take, she smiles and tells him it's just a gift from what she knows of her other world, from her mage experience. She even admits she didn't realize that, here, enchanted items are usually stuck to just one effect. Anak barges in and the king grabs Mizuki's attention. All right, now I'll introduce your collaborators. Begin. It all kicks off with the Prime Minister, then Arvel and Crest step into the spotlight. Then General Seal Reed Crest steps in, becoming her personal guard, telling her to call him Sile, and right behind him comes Eliza, her maid, guiding. Mizuki clocked all of it at once. The Prime Minister looked like a loose cannon, the handsome general was way too young for his rank, and hey, at least she got a real maid who strolled in, introduced herself, and called herself the mage Mizuki. Suki can't wrap her head around it. Why would a general, of all people, be stuck as her personal guard? The king steps in, says it's a family post, and tells her to stop holding back, because her talent speaks for itself. Balance demands it, the Prime Minister says, warning that if they don't keep Sile under guard, the courtesans might start going after him. And Mizuki can't shake the feeling that this attractive guard is bait, waiting like a trap snapping shut. The Prime Minister then reveals they're the highest-ranking Crest clan inside the inner palace, so treating the general like an afterthought would be a crime, while Suzuki can't stop thinking about it. Out there in aristocratic society, rank doesn't just matter, it runs the whole world. And when he finally lays it out, she's officially under the Elfina royal family's protection. He warns that if she dies, the fallout could explode into a major international incident. She nods, grave and steady, and tells him she gets exactly how heavy that answer really is. Responsibility. He clutched her hand in a blazing, formal shake, declaring it was an honor to work with her, and then his thoughts raced to her future. The future hinges on this mission, and Mizuki steals her resolve. She won't back down until it's done. And just a few days later, they tell her, shocking news, a tea party is being thrown to welcome her, and it leaves her stunned. It shocks her when she finds out it's happening right away, because Lady Isabella, the standout daughter of House, demanded it. House Law, and sitting seventh in line to the throne, came with him the power of an inner palace clique, the kind that always held influence from the shadows. Mizuki tries to send lower-ranking women into the role without caring about their schedules, so when it's time to go, Mizuki decides to attend, but right as her maid turns to leave, Mizuki hesitates, and then, pointedly pressing the question of whether the maid shouldn't be guiding her to the hostess, he realizes even the servants here are downright rude, and with a tiny smirk, she declares this is the start of her very first battle. Then they finally arrive. Rival's alarm bells ring as she's met by a group of women who smile and gently insist she sit. Strangely, there's nobody else around. There's obviously no chair at all, so she clocks that detail in her notes and keeps going. How obvious her little scheme is until her maid snaps, "Why did you leave the general behind?" And Mizuki shoots back, "I can't read their real nature with a guard hovering right there, and the women in." Says there's a chair, and Mizuki calmly cuts in, pointing out that if everybody's insisting it's real, then it's gotta be, so they turn around and start laughing at it. Lee starts talking and tells her, of all people, she should know all about falsehoods. Before she blurted that the lineage investigation turned up nothing, no Elfina lady named Mizuki, then sneered through it like it proved her point, that it lays out why she keeps messing up. She criticizes Elfina for shielding a woman with no known ties, and that woman even met the king when her maid protests. Mizuki throws a sharp signal to keep her back, and the women storm in, threaten to rip open her secrets, and demand she vanish, drawing a knife and daring her, "Mess with me and I'll bury you in a coffin, Mizuki." Suzuki fires off a chilling, magic-laced intimidation that knocks everyone to the ground in pure terror. She cuts in with a chilling reminder she's officially under Elfina's protection and demands they face the full weight of what they've done. They dragged every one of his abuses, threats, and humiliations into the light, and they did it all behind the king's back, calling out his expulsion like it was a crime. When Isabella scoffs, Mizuki fires back, asking if she realizes the weight of her words is going straight onto King Severus, and just as Isabella insists there's zero proof of Mizuki's guardian, the second prince of Elfina bursts in and demands answers. He blurts out, "Is Mizuki's word not enough?" and panic detonates instantly. Panic ripped through him as he pleaded, begging for forgiveness. Then the king himself rushes in to apologize for the rudeness of Severus's retainers, but Mizuki stays cool and tells him, straight to his face, that the apology belongs to Elfina, not her. Her personal feelings, then, to prove she's in charge, she unleashes her magic and smashes the women down. Women who swore the chair was real, until they finally begged forgiveness, and the king asks if that chair really existed. She spilled the truth. She drops the truth. The whole incident was captured by her enchanted gear, and every insult they spat out in the name of their beloved clan is about to crumble and be ruled invalid. Crucial proof gets laid down in the official trial to tear down the Duke's line. Then Isabella is dragged straight to the dungeon to wait for her sentence. The dungeon locks in, then the Duke of Law and is deposed, and Isabella gets sentenced straight to execution. When the Prime Minister later corners Mizuki and asks if she has any regrets, she answers straight up that she'd already braced herself for exactly this. Then he flashes a bright grin and asks how she did, wondering if she landed a great score. As the general racks his brain over why Isabella loathes her so fiercely, Mizuki tells him her birth and her so-called demon king guardian were probably hidden on purpose, because only with the right info could the truth be uncovered. The king admits his blood ran cold the moment the knives flashed, and Mizuki grins as she hands him sweets, raising a toast to their first win. Only later did it click, no one had come back for her, not even once, so she worried that Isabella's fate had scared everyone into tiptoeing around her, and that had to mean there was another path forward, right up until she spots something she never saw coming, wonders if it's here to save her, and grins as a wild new idea sparks in her mind. Then the rumors hit like wildfire. Rumors explode among the maids. Apparently a ghost has shown up in the Severus Inner Palace, slipping through the halls during the late-night rounds, and it's just the start. That dread has gone so feral that even seasoned maids can't shake their fear once night falls, and Mizuki, she jolts awake in the middle of the night, half sure the palace is genuinely haunted, especially since those sleepless nights are draining the courtesan's precious beauty sleep, turning everyone cranky, bone-tired, and worn out. Plus, she's still one of the most beautiful women in the world. Half-dazed and running on pure exhaustion, the woman staggers around and blurts out, "Hey, has that ghost been messing with you too?" Mizuki prompted her to lower her voice and ask the maid who the woman was. Then the answer hit like a bolt. She was Lady Meredith, a trusted member of a duke's clan, known for keeping everything running smoothly as a reliable caretaker with. Inside the palace, Meredith warmly beckons Mizuki over for tea, insisting that a little chat could calm everyone's nerves. Curves, and Mizuki realizes the way she's fallen short in hospitality has only made her situation even harder. She tosses it off like it's nothing, then admits she didn't get a wink because she spent the whole night with the king. She says it out loud, and instantly every maid nearby snaps their sights on her, sharp, suspicious, the whole lot, and she just grins, openly owns it, and eats up the chance to torment them with it. Yeah, she really did spend the night with Rudolph, and all night he grilled her because these weird noises kept echoing through the palace, even though he hadn't left her alone for that long. She leaned in and said, cool as ice, that the inner palace had turned into a full-on haunted house, cursed by a looming ghost, when the truth was, Mizuki herself cooked up the rumor, using a guard statue wired to project a three-dimensional image. Let a frog loose to roam the halls at night, and just wait, because even it. Set up a projector to crank the vibe, and just like that, Rudolph stared at the frog and suddenly got weirdly fired up, blurting that it had grown so big. He replayed the memories it sparked, and then it hit him. That thing must have slipped in through the back of the inner palace. Mizuki tells Rudolph that the creature thrives on pulling eyes across the whole palace, and even though she calls raising something like that wildly eccentric, Rudolph still ends up stuffing it in a fountain pond. She cranks the scheme up a notch, using a tiny nightmare-style shrine that bombards sleeping humans nearby with random recordings, then pushes Rudolph to pin the blame on the Black Knights for how ugly and messed up it all looks, and she crams it full of stolen audio, ripped straight from horror games, so it feels like you're trapped inside that nightmare, almost like you're devoured by zombies. Then the Prime Minister realizes that when nightmare monsters start acting real, it explains why so many concubines suddenly panicked, fled, or ran back home, and why rumors begin to spread. Rumors of a haunted harem spread fast, like it's the kind of nightmare that guarantees they never come back. Rudolph panics that, sooner or later, someone will point the finger at Mizuki just because she's using magic, but Mizuki only shrugs. Come at me, she says, and smiles like she's about to take them down in. Strike, and the fear only spikes as he warns her she could die, then she fires back. He warns them, shoving their enemies straight into destruction always comes with a price, and because she'd already said yes to destroying him. Despite those dangers, his harem can't wait. He refuses to hesitate now, not when he's still there. Not totally sure, she teases him and admits she wants to go all out too for her friend. She's telling him her enchanted gear can both smash and protect, and that without it she'd already be in serious trouble. Then she swears, if anything goes wrong, she'll hit him with telepathy because she's ready to overcome it. Rudolph suddenly yells her name again and yanks her straight into the bath. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, begging her to stay alive, swearing she mustn't hate him, and telling her not to. To stay his friend, and Mizuki stays cool as she promises she won't hate him. No matter how brutal it gets, she'll still share everything with him. Then she asks if he can handle that kind of friendship, which it steals her even more. She's determined to help him no matter what, and when he thanks her, she waves it off like it's nothing more than plain selfishness. Goodness, she couldn't believe she'd been dragged into this world without consent, and the instant she refused to die, everything clicked. Her way forward was crystal clear. She had to protect her own self-worth above all else, and she would never let anyone else's whim turn her into a victim. And she'll chase her own goals no matter what, right or wrong, no matter if they bring her to the end, because her death is hers alone, and once that truth lands, it's done. Settled, she turns to Rudolph and asks if he wants to spend the night with her, leaving him totally confused. She keeps using him until she snaps and reminds him he should already know what a king does in his concubine's room. She adds that she's worried about his diet again because he looks pale, then teases him, saying sure, he's younger than her, but it's still totally fine for him to sleep over because she'll make sure he gets fed just right, until he croaks. Then, in the end, they'll spend the whole night cuddling and doting on sweet little Tama together. By 10 days after the hauntings kicked off, Mizuki was still getting hit with yet another terrifying one. Then another palace rumor slithered through the halls. People swore the elephant concubine had started summoning spirits, even claiming she dragged out the ghost of a 200-year-old warrior. And when the general praised Mizuki for pulling off that witch label, she just smirked and said she never even had to kick the rumors off. Mizuki casually floated the idea of using the ghost's brand new settings, though the general was ready to push back, saying mocking heroic dead ones had gone way too far. Still, Mizuki insisted those heroes might believe they were above Sile, and suggested they could show up to wail over how things turned out for a while. A woman suddenly lunged toward the screaming victim, rushing in for her life, prompting Mizuki to calmly slash her own finger. She drew blood and dropped the attacker in an instant as the night energy roared through her, then left her personal maid friend behind. Frantic until Mizuki burst into laughter, then it hit her. The general had purposely been holding back to test just how far her power could really go, and after dropping 4 attackers already, she suddenly realized the heat was on her alone and that she was the target. Suspecting someone was using the chaos as cover to slip her out of the picture, until she finally learned. Mizuki snapped the truth from the Prime Minister's mouth. Every attacker was Meredith's follower, and she instantly rejected it. He shot down the plan to arrest them on the spot, and instead gave them room to slip away. Let the plan keep rolling so she could trap them with proof that couldn't be denied, then even ordered the king to stay in the dark, elsewhere. Swearing under his breath, Meredith slipped a calming piece right into Lydia's mouth. She calmly steered Lydia's fear toward hatred, until Lydia finally snapped and blamed the witch for all her pain, and that's when Meredith spoke up softly, but with iron certainty, telling Mizuki she had to kill Musica. Suzuki gets word that the concubines have once again packed the salon, and she decides, with chilling purpose, this is exactly where everything should go down, because if an attack is coming, it'll hit where everyone can see it, in the middle of the biggest crowd. So everything can finally be dragged out into the open before she steps out, she orders her personal maid to stay put, then warns her this could turn deadly, because Mizuki knows firsthand that the haunted chaos gripping the inner palace was unleashed by her own words, and if someone's using that chaos as a smokescreen to hit her, she'll flip the script, turn the same turmoil back on them, and drag the real culprit into the light. She knew the moment had finally come to shut down this grim, drawn-out war of deception, and then, boom, Meredith showed up and greeted her like an old friend, asking how she was doing. She even admitted Mizuki skipped their invite last time, but she decided to join them for tea today after all. But Mizuki stays cool, calmly shuts him down, and says she never knows what someone might sneak into the tea. A comment hits Meredith so hard she visibly twitches, and she snaps back that there's no reason to suspect every single one of her girls. Mizuki snaps back, no tea, no games. She's here to call out the criminal driving those girls to attack her, and she jabs a finger straight at Meredith, and then it riles up the nearby women, who snap that Mizuki's insulting someone who's shown nothing but kindness, gushing about Meredith's gentle heart while throwing shade at Mizuki's. Merida holds her ground with a cold, cutting attitude. Then, right when you think she's done, she cracks into loud, dramatic tears, begging them to explain how Mizuki could ever hate her, swearing it shatters her heart, and instantly the other women rush in to soothe her. Until Mizuki finally snaps inside and declares she's done dealing with it. Dealing with those non-stop victim players is an absolute nightmare. That just pours gasoline on the women's rage. They snarl that Mizuki bullied Meredith and label her an evil monster. Evil witch. Then Lydia rockets to her feet and points at Mizuki, shouting that the inner palace started going wrong the second she arrived, that Lady Isabella is moments from execution, that ghosts are now haunting the halls, and that everyone's been acting off because of her, declaring it's all Mizuki's fault. Or anyone can react. Lydia snatches something from her pocket, hurls it at Mizuki, and screams at her to get out of this place, but the moment the general steps in, he slams the object aside and yanks Mizuki back by sheer experience. She finally gets it, he just saved her life, while he shrugs it off with that dry little line, like it wasn't done for any pleasure at all. Royal guards snap into action and pin Lydia down, barking at her to stand down, while Mizuki stays ice calm and declares that at last they've got every shred of proof they need, setting up. Meredith demands answers, and Mizuki drops the bombshell. She has audio recordings from those midnight tea parties, proving what Meredith told the girls, that they had to kill Mizuki, that everything would be fine once she was gone, and even pushing Lydia to do the deed, while the women erupt in furious outrage, screaming that Mizuki is slandering her with fake proof. Mizuki can only stew in bitter disbelief at their blindness, because they never see the truth staring them in the face. They could have been next, and then she adds one more twist. An odd frog roaming the palace sniffed something out in Meredith's room, and when Meredith tries to shrug it off as a planted inside. Palace merchant Mizuki stays cool, then calmly points out that Meredith clearly knows way too much, like she's been hiding the truth that this isn't any ordinary sugar pot, and that tells you everything is about to unravel, revealing. It felt like those sugar cubes were secretly hooked up with an ultra-addictive poison, one that hijacked your mind while you were intoxicated, and made you beg for the next dose by obeying whatever it told you to do. The general makes it crystal clear. This poison is so deadly that even holding it is met with brutal punishment. Meredith made it crystal clear she used that trick to twist those girls into attacking Mizuki, knowing full well it would destroy them. Meredith finally drops the mask, admits with icy calm that she just used people like bugs lured in by sweetness, and breaks it down point by point, explaining. She admitted she was set on taking over the inner palace, not just for power, but to finally prove she deserved more than being a political pawn in their eyes, and once Isabella's faction was wiped out, Mizuki was the last wall standing in her way. Mizuki shoots back deadpan, "Must be miserable being you," and it sends Meredith into disbelief and seething rage as she snaps that she won't accept defeat and won't pulls out poison to end it all, only for Mizuki to step in at the last second. Zuki lunged in at the very last second, grabbed her attention, and snapped that she was a coward for trying to run from her responsibility. Mizuki tells her straight to the face that picking her own path means owning every consequence of the crimes she's committed. In pressing her over and over about the girls Meredith tossed aside so casually, dragging them through her schemes, and swearing that this was what true atonement looked like. Moment means getting dragged into a courtroom, standing trial, and letting the judges pass judgment, even while Meredith swears she'll never be forgiven, and then Meredith blurts out, eyes wide, that the girls went rogue on their own, and that she only planted the idea. Mizuki finally snaps out of it, realizes she's been dodging blame this whole time, and vows to fight through to the very end. In the end, it fires off a final reminder to Meredith coldly, look around, and don't forget who really owns the inner palace. Palace Air crackled as he demanded, do you really think the king will hand power to some manipulator hiding behind everyone else? Then he slammed the truth down hard, there simply isn't not a soul left who even bothers to see any worth in it. Meredith can't stomach the thought that she's worthless, or that no one would even mourn her fall, and as the truth finally crashes down on her, her control slips and tears hit, because she's always clung to recognition, sure she mattered to someone out there, but now she's being told there's nothing of value in her at all. What shakes her even harder, Mizuki didn't drop at all, even after she fed that girl the Achilles poison, and that's when the fear really sinks. And Meredith can't wrap her head around how Mizuki stayed right beside His Majesty with zero effort, like Mar. When Meredith finally lost that position long ago, it left a sting in her heart, and a part of that loss followed her. Rage and fear twist deep in her chest as she steels herself. This next plan has to be flawless, because it worked before, and this time she's dead sure Mizuki is going to die. She can't shake a weird, off-kilter feeling, and she's stuck, scrambling for a starting point as she wonders, for a split second, if using monsters as accomplices might be the way. Elsewhere, Klaus can't believe it. Meredith totally had them fooled. He even admits he never saw her using a mass hypnopedia device coming, while the team is already gearing up to document Mizuki's recent moves, and the king. Arjun, visibly rattled, tells Mizuki, you said you'd call me when things turned dangerous, but she waves it off and insists it's totally safe, something Arjun just can't swallow, and questions Klaus whether Mizuki has grown too close to the king, and Klaus stays ice calm, saying she's only been around him longer for over a month now. Meredith cutting. Skipping the ironic jokes, she can't deny Mizuki's results. Mizuki quickly wiped out the inner palace's troublemaking faction leaders, even if that move was guaranteed to spark chaos with Maid S. She bolts into the chaos, since nobody S left to run the daily grind, then admits the first battle was pure genius. Mizuki hid where she came from, didn't just brush off suspicion, and instead baited her enemy's pride, goading them into a fatal blunder, proving she not only grasped the purpose behind noble schemes, but also knew every rule they were bound by, like she could pull both strings with terrifying precision. The partner warns that if Mizuki had missed her cues, disaster would have been waiting, but Meredith cuts in with a chilling calm. She'd made it through, no matter what. And he adds that there's only one concubine left now, leaving no doubt about what that means, implying they're about to hear the mission is already finished, at the same. Right then, Mizuki is trapped in a prison cell, and the horror hits too late. Meredith finally pulled it off, and she's managed. Mizuki caught her as Lady Aurelia of House Corn Benton demanded a private meeting, and even with the general and everyone else in the room, she apologized, admitting she'd had no information about Aurelia. Suzuki dropped her guard, told them to back up, and just as Mizu gets snared in a one-way teleport trap she instantly recognizes from games, but she never thought she'd face it for real, and before she can even react, a man steps up and sneers that Aurelia, the useless kid, finally did something right, and he's ready to take full advantage of it while Mizuki straight up tells him she wasn't paying close attention, except for the one part where he proves he's nothing but trash, because he can't even bring himself to care about his own daughter. He sneers at her confidence, claiming he knows she can't cast a single spell without her enchanted gear, Then he reminds her she's trapped inside a magic barrier, powerless to strike back. Then barks at her to hand over her fan, hair accessories, earrings, and bracelet, Mizuki. He deadpans that he's ridiculously well-informed, and he smirks and says he's got his sources, then confidently fires off the instructions like he owns the place. He built the guards to force the door open the second she surrendered the items, then dismissed them. She shuts down their hesitation by flat-out saying, "Without those trinkets, I'm just a girl, nothing to fear." The moment he orders the door open, Mizuki's calm smile blooms, and she tells him they should go have some fun, like her sweet expression is warning him he just committed a mistake he won't live down. The king declares you can't stop a teleporting kidnapping, especially when Mizuki basically threw herself into the mess, and all they can do is guess she had a reason. So yeah, Mizuki didn't step into any of this willingly at all, and the prime minister snaps that the general is furious the king let the same guy get tied to 2 different kidnappings. Then he corners the king, demanding to know if the prime minister managed to track her down, only for the king to snap back that she's headed to Lord Benton's diner. The dungeon, the very spot where Lady Aurelia finally cracked and confessed, sits inside the castle town, right uncomfortably close to them, and the moment the king hears it, he snaps into action and orders a rescue team assembled without a second to waste. The attack gets delayed, but the prime minister stays stone calm and shuts it down. No preparations are needed. Then he leans in and tells the general he just got a message from the patriarch of the Crest House, claiming that the Crimson Hero himself is the one coming to rip Lady Mizuki out of danger. Right then, bam, a brutal slam hits the door, and the general immediately starts doubting whether betting everything on that man is truly wise, because, with his methods infamous and a whole bunch of women scared of him like he's a monster, the prime minister fires back that they're hosting Lady Mizuki right now on behalf of Afina, and from their side, this is the fastest, surest way to bring her home safely. The king gets it in a heartbeat, then realizes that, for his own good, he's been shut away for so long, treated like nothing but something everyone fears. Fear gnaws at him, because pretty soon he'll be staring at the same bloodstained nightmare scenes the Lord of the Purge once unleashed. A faint smirk tugs at his lips as he realizes it might not be such a bad outcome. Before he turns back to the prime minister and demands what's inside the letter the Countess of Carly sent, the king explains that he told her about the kidnapping, and her reaction was painfully clear. Rage burned in his chest because, yeah, she dragged Mizuki into all her mess, and he finally admits, quietly, that this time they played it way too safe. There's no stopping her now from charging straight into the castle, especially since marriage Hassan. She didn't change a bit, and all he could do was pray Mizuki wasn't about to pull another reckless move. Meanwhile, Mizuki flips the whole dungeon upside down, locks the man in his own cell, seizes control of the safe, and realizes with a sharp little shock that he even stashed a safe and an account ledger down there. Then she snaps orders at the guards, punish him right now for the corruption they've just uncovered. While he yells that the money is his, she stays cool and asks, almost teasingly, if he hasn't had enough fun yet, remember. Calling out how badly she'd beaten him, she glared him down and ripped into him for having zero shame at his age, pure rage. He fires every guard on the spot and screams that they're traitors. But Mizuki whips around, grabs his attention, and demands to know why he ever bothered working for someone like that. The guard leans in and tells him, "I came to this city chasing my dream of becoming a knight, ready to protect King Rudolph and the country's future just like the Crimson Hero, the legendary N. The mysterious knight who stormed into the invasion 10 years ago and flipped the war's fate with sheer force. This former mercenary rose from nothing, slaughtered the enemy ranks to rescue the kingdom, his red hair soaked in the blood of his foes, and he was crowned Severus, greatest knight," Mizuki asked. He turns to the guard and blurts out, "Isn't it tragic how my admiration dragged me into this?" Then he urges. She scoots him closer to the palace invitation instead, even as he hesitates. Fear doesn't stop her, she says it straight, promising him he'll expose an evil noble's tax evasion and free a captive noblewoman, leaving him with nothing but an action-ready smile as she spoke like a true agent of justice, certain that everyone she trusted wouldn't just wave off a man with service that prestigious. Stirred, the guard clenched his fist and locked his grip on his knife, swearing on his honor that he'd bring Lady Mizuki back to the royal palace safe and sound, and as they set off, his oath proved he truly sounded like a knight. He snaps at everyone to back off if they want to keep breathing, then pushes through to clear the way for Lady Mizuki, only to feel that stubborn delay building in the air. Mizuki blasts her magic to shove the knights out of her way, refusing to sit and wait for rescue as she charges forward and cuts. She mows down anyone who dares block her, and then, just like that, they're gone, reaching. She bursts into the garden, spots a blood-soaked man mowing down guards, and can't help wondering, was he still alive? Whether he's friend or foe, the knight snaps that he won't break a vow, while Mizuki steps in, promises she'll deal with this man, and orders him straight to the palace. Palace, he storms in saying he came to take her back, but she shuts him down and refuses. He snaps back, stunned that he's being rescued this soon, and meets the stranger's eyes, only to realize it's the general. When she asks if he really fought his way through the town, he cuts in bluntly. They fought him back, so he finished it with one brutal strike to the throat, right as the... In the dead of night, Mizuki gulps down the shock, and then casually says aiming for the throat means the enemy won't survive. And he shoots back that he's been doing it this way for 10 years. No fear, no hesitation, just the cold certainty of killing. The knight can't believe the brutal skill he's witnessing. Then it hits him. Those 10 years and the man's grind mean everything. A red-haired kid stares in disbelief, demanding if the general is really the Crimson Hero himself, and the man casually confirms it, saying the rumors have only gotten worse, then launches into the full story of what happened next. 10 years ago, he stormed the front lines with King Rudolph and butchered every single mage in the enemy's crimson ambush. Crimson rain pours from countless slit throats. Then he turns to Mizuki and demands if that horror even scares her, and she studies him in silence, uneasy déjà vu crawling up her spine, because his unnatural calm feels like a busted killing machine. Then she forces herself to say it out loud. She shrugs it off, then snaps her magic like a command bam, and hurls him straight into the night's water. Horror hits him as he demands what she did to their hero, and Mizuki just deadpans that she tossed him through the wash, then warns they're heading back to the palace before anyone reports all the gore. The general finally steps out. She kept coughing, then admitted she'd pulled it off without any incantation, right before she scribbled it down. She shoots back that even if she won't strike face to face, she's already buried her fair share of people. And they call her the Bloody Lady for a reason, before everything turns effortless. With magic, she keeps relentlessly wiping him dry, and then he smirks as he says that. She admits it all, every sacrifice she made was for King Rudolph, then she snaps back and corrects herself. She snaps back at him, saying she's right here in this world, and that every move she makes is pure survival, fueled by self-interest. Then she turns the knife by bluntly telling him his hair is a fluffy mess, and she admits. He admits helping Rudolph was both truth and betrayal, pure betrayal, really, but he insists his heart still served his king. That's a great sign. Rudolph's got a serious ally behind him, and she'd never be afraid of him, unless he threatens her existence, and she answers with everything she's got, even as he starts calling it her ego. Egocentric guy drops to his knees and declares, loud and clear, that he's come for Esquire. He escorts her, thanking her so fiercely the words blaze, while the knight itself seems to marvel as she forced a hero to his knees, and now he can't stop wondering if she's a goddess. Mizuki snaps back that she's a mage, but the general shuts it down, saying she's more like a demon. She didn't deny it, and the knight accepts the truth, then declares her a merciless demon to allies and enemies alike, back at the palace. Alice gets the shock of her life. She's told the king that Mizuki is back, hauling the real culprit right with her. And the prime minister clings to hope, praying the count is still alive. The king frowns, wondering if that's really his problem. Then the prime minister steps in and says Lady Mizuki always delivers results that blow past every expectation. A woman clocks the smile on his face and blurts out, "Looks like you had a blast," then vows she'll present. And the sting of leaving her out of the inner council, while the king tells her the moment the inner palace is cleared and Mizuki is back, her job is done, but he fumbles the words and awkwardly pleads with Lady Carlid for understanding, since he's not used to handling things like this. When he talks to her like that, she cuts him off and tells him to speak like he always does, and right then, moments. Then just when everything feels doomed, fresh news hits. Lady Mizuki is back, and she's totally unharmed. In private, she can't shake the feeling. This is another mistake, and she doesn't flinch at all. She'll fight, fail, and push back again and again, even if they slap the label "scandalous envy" on it, and even if her family is still mourning, because in the end. And she vows to be right there beside Rudolph. No one else gets that spot. Little maid stands there with arms wide open, and Mizuki steps in for a gentle hug, whispering that she's finally home. Then Alyssa exhales with clear relief, grateful only that Mizuki made it back safe. Mizuki lets out a heavy sigh and grumbles that it took her way too much trouble just to get her enchanted items back. Then she's instantly relieved that she finally has her bracelet again, and the maid just smirks, saying it fits him perfectly after all, like it was meant for his majesty. That one comment snaps Mizuki to a stop, and then, without warning, she leans in and grills the maid about who she truly is. Startled, Alyssa blurts out, "It's me, Alyssa, obviously," and quickly adds that she's been King Rudolph's maid for years. Years pass and Mizuki can't shake the memory of that tiny pause before her answer, because it basically gave the lie away. Then calmly blurts out, "I just can't believe someone could serve the king for that long." Alyssa swears she's known the king since she was a kid, and that he'll brush off her little flaws, but Mizuki shoots back that Rudolph always puts his people first, no matter what he feels. He grinds himself to the bone for the kingdom, while the people closest to him back him to the hilt, no wavering, and she can't shake the question of whether he'd ever really make an exception. When the maid asks if Mizuki doesn't trust her, Mizuki answers straight up, yes, she doubts her, because from the very start, she's been sure there are 3 conspirators. The spiriters, yeah, and the maid was one of them. She remembers it all. During the clash with Isabella, the maid suddenly cut in, snapped that she couldn't take it anymore, even if she was just a servant, and then her words kept piling up. A tiny moment people would have shrugged off, until you saw how it could have been the difference between life and death, thanks to how recklessly it all went down. But Mizuki cuts in and says she decided to put all 3 of them to the test, see if they'd really prove they could. She kicked things off with a narcotics investigation. She kept the king completely in the dark, then ordered the prime minister to stay silent, don't report her progress, don't even hint that she was the one being hunted. Even if he'd tried to hide that he failed to stop the drugs, he still chose the worst move. He made sure she was the target. He didn't dodge the truth. He spilled everything straight to the king, and boom, Mizuki got roasted with a lecture, but his loyalty was proven. Next. Then the general swooped in to rescue her, and she admits she can't even begin to explain it all, but she did get one crucial look at him too, Even though he's grumbling about being tossed into a fountain, Mizuki's sure he's still nursing that grudge, and she insists all of it proves they're loyal to King Rudolph. Finally, she blurts out the truth about the leak, her enchanted items, and how they're built to cover both her offense and defense, because without them she'd have been in real trouble, but only a handful of people knew about that weakness, and it begs one explosive question: how in the world did Count Benton find out? The maid insists any guard could have caught those details, but Mizuki fires back that there were only 3. 3 realistic sources lay it all out, and the maid still shuts it down, refusing to conceive. She pushes forward and says that after they snatched her, they hauled away her enchanted gear, and even though she had other jewelry, the man singled out 4 specific items and demanded them, setting everything in motion. Mizuki even dares the general to say one thing: had she been wearing that bracelet at all? And when the truth lands, Mizuki realizes she'd had it on from the very first moment, plus that tiny detail changes everything. Then a game-changing clue drops in, because everyone else would toss an ordinary, non-magical bracelet aside, except for one person who couldn't stop staring at it, convinced it just. She says they can't afford to miss the kings, then shuts it down cold. Once Count Benton's quills are in hand, their guard candidate will pull together every last piece of proof, so she glares at the maid and admits her own personal feelings made her move too fast and expose herself, and she continues. She leans in and asks her one final time who she really is, and the answer hangs on the edge of a breath, then the silence breaks. Suddenly he strides forward and blurts out the truth: Adelaide Wyatt, the future matriarch of House Wyatt, and Eliza, the Countess's twin sister. Carlite jerked her chin up, ordering her to quit this disgusting act immediately. Eliza went rigid with shock, then blurted, "This can't be happening. I locked her away myself and she's still in the hospital." Miss Ricky watches in silence as the 2 women look eerily alike, and the general just murmurs, almost like it slipped out, that their mother once tended to him as his nursemaid. The Prime Minister then adds, "They grew up in the palace with me until I turned 10, sealing the truth. She's a real childhood friend of His Majesty." The woman lies. Eliza snaps out that Adelaide didn't just steal her identity, she also plotted to kidnap an Elfinian woman, and Eliza can't even wrap her head around it. Adelaide shoots back that Eliza never had to hide. She could have stood by His Majesty all along, so why would she keep swapping places now, when Adelaide is the one finally taking the family name, after all this time? Eliza shot a sharp look to silence her, then declared she was a royal servant of this kingdom, and all she'd ever wanted was to stay close to the man who once set her heart on fire. Mizuki is left completely stunned, though. More entertained than she'd like to admit, and way more distressed. She couldn't stop mentally labeling it a jealousy-fueled crime, a melodramatic showdown laced with love and venom, and to her own shock, she almost wanted it to spiral even worse. Sensing her thrill, the king lunges for her arm and mutters that he can feel she wants to. She tries to rile them up, but she waltzes right out of it anyway, smiling as she admits she just has to see how the soap opera ends. The king lets out a heavy sigh and admits the maid told him all the way back then, saying Adelaide had been digging for dirt on him, so he panicked, clocked it as a political trap, and cooked up a plan of his own. Mizuki snaps right away, asking if that means the romance route was dead from the very beginning. The king finally steps in and admits he kept Adelaide under surveillance, then let the maid feed her secrets, so Adelaide immediately learns that an Alfinian lady is coming to smash the inner palace. Whatever Adelaide told herself, she snapped, kidnapped her sister, locked her up, and slid into her life like it was never meant to end. Thinking that once every other marriage option got cut, maybe, just maybe, this time his childhood friend could finally snag the general, she even told herself that being last didn't mean she was least, and since they weren't total strangers, she might as well go for it, until the king dryly remarks, "Thank you." He tells Mizuki this isn't some playwright's script, and she nods along, right up until she says the demon prince basically chased a perfect ending, meaning he expected them to muscle through every nasty complication imaginable, so she lets him have it, she accused. He charges the king with cruelty for letting that deadly woman roam free, while he keeps his eyes on her every single move, Then she strides in, snapping that there's no way she'll let this fight end, because Amir's sister fires back sister to sister, because the M. Since the maid poured her heart into loyalty and competence, and still watched it all get trampled by a woman who couldn't move on from her first love, rage had every right to flare in her. Adelaide whips around, glares at her, and snaps that everyone keeps yapping about Lady Mizuki, demanding to know how anyone could ever look past that violent, cruel woman before. He suddenly surged toward her, screaming that she should die. Suzuki shoots back with a calm confidence that her bracelet barrier is up and fully active. She's totally fine, so it only fuels. Rage swells in Adelaide as she sobs that all she ever wanted was to be the king's one and only, and that none of this would have happened if Mizuki hadn't shown up. Mizuki snaps her words off mid-sentence, saying she said enough, and that no one in this world loves him the way Adelaide swears they do, like, Adelaide's claim is about to cut off the truth. Adelaide collapses to the floor as Mizuki delivers a chilling explanation. The king of Severus picked her as an Alfinian collaborator, and if Adelaide had ever focused on becoming a worthy future matriarch of the crown, she might have been closer to her own goal too. Adelaide fires back, accusing her of lying, and swears there's no way Mizuki could have gotten that close to him in such a short time without pulling something shady, then sneers that time alone doesn't prove a thing. Mizuki shoots back that she won't let Adelaide cling to a friendship built on warped logic, then Adelaide turns to Alyssa. Lisa demanded to know what happens next, fired off whether Mizuki planned to kill her, and spat out, "You bloody lady," only. Mizuki urges her to look closely, then she snatches the key. The king yanks him by the front of his coat and drags him close, slamming into shock and stealing the breath right out of his chest. Adelaide lunges into the room, and the moment the maids gasp, she shrieks that Mizuki has crossed every line. Mizuki smirks, flat out admits she knows she's done it, then leans toward the king and pleads for his help. "We're friends, right?" and warns that this kind of pain will sink deeper than any blade before she pressed. Plants a kiss on his cheek, taunts Adelaide with jealous, and regret it now, then smirks, tells her to sit back and watch the whole show, declaring, no matter how hard she fights, she'll never reach him, she'll never stand at his side. Adelaide collapses in sobs, pleading for his majesty, crying out for her dear, her sweet Rudolph, right up until. As the guards yank her out, she's still screaming that she will not accept this ending. Mizuki swivels toward Lady Alyssa and asks, almost casually, if that was okay. Alyssa answers instantly, saying Adelaide earned every single bit of it, and then the scene cuts on the gender. The crowd keeps whispering that their demon lady always hits the worst possible spot, leaving Mizuki with a searing warning that makes him guard his back. 10 days later, with the counterarguments vanished, Kenya is already being whispered about as the king of the purge. Alyssa even corners Mizuki, demanding to know if she's really heading back to Alfina. She confessed she'd hoped to catch her in more dresses, and Mizuki fired back that it's damn near impossible to fight right while you're dressed up. The Prime Minister snaps at her for acting like a tomboy, then turns to the king and yells, "When are you going to stop stuffing your face?" And before they can even argue, both of them dive back into their food. They burst out laughing and dubbed him their mother, and Alyssa chimed in like, "Yeah, it's totally a motherly thing to say." Finally, the king leans in and thanks Mizuki with real sincerity, confessing he gets it now, why Illusion insisted she'd be fine on her own, right up until everything turns on Mizuki. Mizuki shot back with a sharp grin, "Don't think I'm done yet. If it's worth doing the right way." The Prime Minister declares the sanctions are in full swing because a lawful court judgment backs them up with solid evidence, then tells everyone who wants details to dig through the court records, while warning that what happens next with the closed inner palace will be settled later. Rudolph, acting like the king he is, slams down his authority, declares the report finished, and demands any objections be spoken right now. One noble whispers that a purge this massive could cripple the country's administration, and the prime minister insists they're already hunting for the right successors, until a loud shut-it-down snaps through the room, and the man still insists that every bit of caution matters, right then and there. The doors swing open, and Musica strides in, saying she only came to say goodbye, until she snaps that they've been yammering endlessly, calls them out for pretending to care, and bluntly accuses them of just stalling so they could dodge responsibility. One nobleman snaps and lunges at her, but she smashes him flat with her magic, and then coolly steps in and calls herself Mage Mizuki, the king's best friend, ordering him not to skulk around like a coward as the noble scoffs. He blasted her with accusations that she wasn't a real mage, then jabbed at her clothes and sneered they were scandalous before grilling her in court about how a mage could even claim that. She even dared to talk politics, and when they tried to label her a courtesan, she snapped back. She'd only come to see the king and got hassled by a bunch of confused courtesans. Then she hit them with the real warning. If Elfina had filed a formal protest, this would have blown up into serious trouble. So she went along for a while, and that crazy gamble paid off. Thanks to the king's decision to host her as a courtesan, the palace feud fizzled out on the inside instead of turning into a headline-worthy international disaster. But now the nobles can't stop whispering, convinced the king has to be incompetent for trusting someone like her, while Mizuki secretly wonders if they're even brave enough to face the truth in the first place. He spits out the truth to their faces, saying they're so useless they had to outsource parts of the purge to some foreign agent, and then he warns them. A dire warning hit the room. Without the king, the whole country was on the edge of disaster, but if they truly want her dear friend to stay out of it, she's more than happy to quench her own hunger for revenge on the spot. She gets it thrown right back in her face as they scream that she's a pretentious magician with appalling manners. Members start to press in, and she stays stone calm as she reminds them, "I already told you, this is personal," right before she unleashes it. With a snap of her magic, she freezes them mid-motion and declares she won't bend for anyone, then the words cut off. Bestained and places herself first above all else, because she is a thirst for power that won't let her stop. A mage and a calamity given a body. It erupts while they're yelling for someone to stop her, all the way until the king, right. She jerks upright and snaps an order at her, telling her to stop right then, right there, before he says. He warned that, when the time comes, his people won't escape, every citizen will be judged by the laws of his kingdom. And she nods in agreement, lets the ice go, then warns, she's fine with retainers giving the king advice, but if anyone dares to strike him personally, they'll have to answer to her fury. The knights snap to their knees the second they spot the mage, and the room suddenly erupts. Struck with awe, the prince watches Mizuki grin at the king and tells him that only something truly impressive earns a blessing from heroes. Then the prime minister deadpans that she's officially swept Lisa off her feet, because Lisa's just staring at Mizuki in total awe, so Mizuki blurts, "Don't ruin this moment." She says she's heading home. The king warns her not to act like a stranger, and she smiles back that they'll cross paths again, hoping they'll meet again and soon. Her next visit would finally feel calm. Then, right after she came back. When she finally comes back, the prince welcomes her like she's royalty, tells her he heard she caused quite a stir, and can't stop praising her outfit. Then she just smiles, soaking in every compliment. She admits she might have pushed the joke way too far, so if she ever slips and harms national interests, he's got every right to exile her, though. That she didn't even make him mad, she just hauled out the trash, and it totally blew his expectations away, leaving her momentarily stunned that he'd talk about people like that. Then cut straight to it, tell her she can claim her reward, bring up the promise that she'd live under his protection when she got back, and watch it hit her. She's not some suspicious outsider anymore, she's a real citizen of Elfina, as he grants her full guardianship, complete with Elfinan citizenship on paper and a passport, and tells her this isn't all. Severus will vouch for her citizenship too, while the Crown and the Crest family stand watch as her guardians, leaving her completely speechless. Severus has even acknowledged her place in this world too, so she blurts out a question about whether dual citizenship won't cause trouble, and he just calmly tells her that other worlders get exceptions. Explaining that with two citizenships she gets double protection, like the universe covers her from every angle, which makes her stare in disbelief and ask if that's actually how it works. He nods, saying it stops any one nation from hoarding knowledge from other worlds. Then he steps closer and tells her. People swear other worlders are born priceless, and that belief turns her into a walking, living treasure. He fires off a question, are you dissatisfied? Because that's the moment her rewards are decided, and everything hinges on her answer, and he casually drops, yeah, I remember, she even asked me to handle her shadow, and right then. It all finally clicks for her. she realizes just how reckless it is for an ordinary citizen to bargain face-to-face with royalty. Cruelty is behind her now, and once she finally grasps how the government and the royal court work, she realizes she's gained something huge, real status, no doubts, and she can't even pretend it isn't more than enough. Then the prince agrees, then adds that she's picked up a new alias too, the Blurry Lady, pointing out. When attackers closed in, he realized even wild rumors and a bad reputation could act like armor. To her, it's like the story just threw her into a tutorial from hell, because now she's not facing wild beasts anymore. She's up against a fiercely rational, deeply radical society, and she can't stop wishing they'd at least toss her a few more hints, maybe even a proper guide, but she stops there. She sinks into a deep bow, grateful tears in her eyes, as she thanks the prince for everything he's taught her, and then she slips in a heartfelt apology too. And he gently pats her head, telling her those shocking revelations all at once could crush her, so. Even though it annoys him that she saw right through his intentions, he still turns to her and says. He leans in and says, "I've got one more piece of good news for my clever girl," and then an A. He asks if she remembers Argentine Klaus, the white and black knights, then her face twists as she snaps that she'd rather forget them, only for him to grin and tell her that they're both engaged to her, leaving her utterly. She's completely shaken, and then before she can even think, she blurts out, "What do you mean by that?" This world has always been home to travelers from beyond, people from other planes, so its folks call them void travelers, welcome them like close allies, and never stop thanking them for the insane knowledge and skills they bring. And they just kept going, until one day a vile nation decided to lock away one lone traveler and milk his gift for enchanting items, using his. Countless kingdoms would crumble under those creations, until a mage from another world finally stepped in and swore she'd come to save him, and when he admitted he'd already stained his soul with endless sins, she just smiled and said she'd carry the blame. And while he fought by their side, that ruthless nation finally got what it deserved, yet the other worlder had already been plotting his own escape, ready to vanish with his terrifying enchantments, and leaving everyone to grieve the brutal truth. They couldn't save their good friend from falling into a life of crime, after all. After the war, that same mage didn't just stop there. He helped forge a guardianship system to protect the worlders from beyond, a living frame that held everything together. A mighty framework stood guard over the world itself, and the visitors who dared to cross the void to reach it, and her wish still echoes in people's hearts, honored to this day, the prince. Prince tells Mizuki that Argentine Klaus will be her guardian, guarding her from anyone who tries to use her power or her life, and Mizuki snaps, protests that he still hasn't explained why they're calling it an engagement, wondering. He fires back that she isn't a criminal, but she still needs supervision, and he admits the Argentine Klaus were picked because he personally knows their skill and loyalty. Even with all her arguing that this goes way too far, he reassures her this is just a loose, non-binding deal, gender won't matter, and she can walk away anytime she finds someone else. She didn't even hesitate, she demanded he cancel it on the spot. He shot back that if she rejected his idea, he'd just hand the job to someone else, like it didn't matter. He even adds in this annoyingly confident way that if Argent ever has no mission, he'll start courting her himself. And even though Klaus is impossible to read, he's clearly smitten with her, so she panics, blurts out, "Since when?" and the prince finally answers that it had been all along. She forged that bracelet right before she disappeared. She casually whipped up a bracelet with her magic, one that could cure poison, seal wounds, and even throw up both magical and physical shields. She was just smashing multiple effects together into a single item because she was drowning in materials, and he swore that was completely impossible, but he had already warned her. She told her never to make those things in front of other people, warning that once folks realized what she could do, they'd obsess over her, and she nodded along, agreeing to it. Not fully grasping what it meant back then, he grabbed the bracelet, muttered under his breath, and refused to hand it back, swearing that this bold, never-before-seen power couldn't be allowed to spread. Only then. Then it hit her Klaus wasn't chasing romance at all. His obsession was all business, and it screamed professional from the start. The prince shoots her a knowing look, and right after that, a woman sweeps in smiling and introduces herself as Charlene. Then a man named Lawrence shows up with his wife Corlett, who both say it's an absolute honor to meet her, while the prince steps in to explain, telling them the Brondels are tightly related, and that Lady Charlene is Urchel's own sister, then watching everyone cheer the guardian deal, even if it wrecks one family member's future, with Charlene paying the price. Charlene grinned with pure joy, saying she'd finally met a woman who could knock sense into her brother Simpson for good. In their warrior family, risking your life in battle isn't just duty, it's the ultimate love letter, proving respect so deep it turns into power itself. Mizuki stares at Argent, baffled, and clings to a strange hunch that this affection feels totally backward, and maybe Argent has never once been loved by a woman. Corlett blurts out that she needs to speak frankly, begs Mizuki to hear her out, and clutches a handkerchief so tightly that Mizuki instantly knows this is about to get emotional. David leans in and tells everyone the Brondels are magic-blooded, and that the family has always assumed Klaus only chased magic because it's the trade they were born into. Even when he finally came of age, he still couldn't care less about marriage, like it dragged her straight back to that thing he once said as a kid. A child cast a spell on a doll, and the moment it was done, its eyes lit up and glowed. He declared if it could talk and move like a real person, I'd never need a spouse. This terror would be the only thing I'd fear. A chilling possibility crawled into their minds, and all they could do was dread the moment he might. She might someday craft his perfect partner with nothing but magic, and even though she woe. Once he begged the gods to guide him to even one living human, then Mizuki and that bracelet crashed into his life, and suddenly all he could talk about was her, so they thank her with all their heart and ask for. Beg her to watch their boys as he left the. Mizuki suddenly felt like a massive weight had slammed onto her shoulders. As the prince casually shrugs that everything fits a little too perfectly, like he's orchestrating it all, she snaps back, accusing him of loving this way more than he should, and then she demands to know exactly what he thinks. Does it even make sense if all her guardians are from the same country? Doesn't that completely defeat the point? She leans in and reminds her they never truly wrapped up that conversation, and she has. You'll have to admit he's right, because she quickly finds out she's about to meet yet another guardian. She figures it's another Severist, until he shrugs in beloved like it's nothing, and that single word smashes the calm right out of her, leaving her drowning in questions as her very next guardian materializes, smiles and promises she'll see him again soon, then calls her his beloved fiancé. Say it so naturally she nearly forgets how to breathe, until she locks eyes with him and realizes it's the infamous general himself, the kind whose name alone shakes every border. Orders she snaps in disbelief and demands if he's really not the general everyone fears, and he just calmly admits her intelligence network is truly impressive. Then Lady Mizuki straight up confesses she already knew exactly who he was the moment she hurled him into a fountain, and Klaus freezes, staring like he can't believe it, so she confirms it. She tossed the Crimson Knight into water. He rips into the terms without a shred of mercy, lays into how disgusting he is and how he's earned every bit of it. Then Argent bristles with jealousy, and the general steps in with a polite, serious plea to keep his name out of every official document. Mizuki snaps back that she doesn't want to be remembered this way, then tells Argent she's got her own opinions about the whole Guardian setup. Still, since it's built for otherworlders, she'll go along with it, but only if he agrees to her strict conditions, right from the start, because there. So don't expect non-stop, way too much hugging. He's cutting it off right there, before he can finish the line. Clouds orders him to stop researching humanoid enchanted items, completely banned, and commands the general to keep living in Severest. Argent instantly shuts him down, so hard she whips him down to the dirt, and when he hits the ground he just smirks like it's still pleasant, making her snap that the captain of the White Wing is a truly awful role model. While Klaus cautiously warns that a full ban on research is a bad idea, she has to cave, giving him exactly one hug a day so he doesn't implode, and honestly, the tension just keeps building. She snaps in place, insisting she can't just pretend they never told her to stop him from creating a wife, and she reminds them all. She recounts the horrors of the Great War, warning that even kind intentions get twisted when any tech hits the battlefield, because she's watched that tragedy unfold firsthand, so she refuses to create humanoid enchanted items with free will, calling them far too dangerous, and when Klaus says he heard her old world was peaceful, she cuts in and makes it clear. It becomes crystal clear, if he pushes that path, she'll shut him down completely, so he finally caves, admits he shouldn't mess with it, and backs off. A hobby because even when she's alone, she can't shake the feeling this tragedy was just a game, and that she's basically shut down wife creation for the Brondel family. Then, when the general demands to know what role he's supposed to play, she tells him straight to back the king. Severest is still in total chaos, and she refuses to let anyone look down. She respects the king's power only because she can't stop butting in, and when he finally asks if she really plans to stay out, she snaps back that she proved her point the other day, and that only the people of this world can truly bring home real results, and it's the way he earned his. He pours his heart out, swearing she's a real true blue friend, but no matter what, he still demands he gets to drop by often just to trade gossip. Klaus warned that the report has to go through L because it could shake foreign relations, and she nods and agrees, then Argent bursts into laughter, and she just can't help asking, what's so funny? He admits it stings getting treated like a stranger, and says it feels like there's a wall between them, something that tears him up inside. A thought Klaus murmurs as she realizes it. She's way closer to the general than anyone expected. Only then did she shrug it off. She'd just known him longer, and when she mused that maybe all this casual talk could offend someone, Klaus. She calms her down, promising that as Prince Illusion's house guest she won't get into trouble, orders Argent to back off, and then she wraps it up, concluding. So if that's the case, then they need to make the engagement work for both of them. At least that's what she tells herself in her own head. She gapes at the horrifying truth. She's engaged to 3 men now, out of. Locked in by necessity, not choice, and the whole situation felt painfully infuriating. As the nights closed in, a wave of people found her, praised her brave outfit, and told her they'd been searching for her, promising that. They've always been warm to her, even pressing her, again and again, about whether she isn't nobility, because before they invite her to sit down and share a meal with them as a friend, they're about to reveal that. And they deliver the prince's message. There's a dinner meeting set for tonight, and when she asks what it's all about, one of them smirks that the food will taste amazing, while trailing off mid-sentence. People are buzzing that it's the Morixam envoy, and that the other worlds are stacked dangerously along the eastern edge, while Severus guards the west. Making her realize that this brutal crash course in politics, power, and survival isn't even close to over, because the prince casually claims Varixen will be thrilled if the two of them finally meet, calling it interkingdom diplomacy, since they're both otherworlders, but the moment Mizuki hears the calm tone, she knows better. There's a knife under that polite smile, and she can't afford to underestimate the situation, or the demon prince himself. She has. She's already had the basics for greeting foreign agents pounded into her day after day, so she vows to throw a proper, flawless welcome all the way through, fully aware that if this is a formal visit, an official record will be written down, no doubt. And she wants that record to scream her heartfelt gratitude to both Elfina and Barrickson for giving other worlders the rare chance to talk to them face to face. The prince thanks her for coming, and just as she's about to, a woman with bright excitement lanes in, asks if she's the otherworlder, beams that she's finally met her, and practically urges Mizuki to take a seat. Which kicks Mizuki's curiosity into overdrive. Why does this woman look like she's been running the entire place? They trade sharp words in a private parlor, ditching the diplomatic ceremony entirely. Meeting, one of the men blurts out an apology for barging in, right as His Highness snaps that the lady must be way too excited, and she quickly agrees, ready to go along. She blurts out that she's never met a soul from another world before, then doesn't even bother to apologize for how boldly she spoke. Mizuki snaps her eyes across the room, and everyone else seems way too calm about the breach, like nobody even noticed. Decorum, right as they realize this too, is quietly woven into the demon prince's unspoken rules. At the contest, Mizuki decides to go along with it, and with perfect manners, politely asks the prince if she can please take a seat, which leaves the woman utterly baffled, until the prince steps in, reassures Mizuki that she's his guest too, and Mizuki quickly answers that she's not just visiting. She lives here, so she can't assume anything, burning his. With his permission to join them for real, he thanked him first. She slides into her seat, and the man Edward, the Warwickson envoy, steps up and introduces himself, then points to his wife, Alyssa, while making it crystal clear she's also an otherworlder, and the shock hits Mizuki so hard she nearly cuts herself off mid-breath. Edward offers a polite greeting, clocks how at ease Mizuki seems in all this, then asks if she's dealt with similar stuff back in her original world. She answers straight up that she was just an ordinary citizen, and she's only trying not to disgrace her kind host. He shoots back with a dry, cutting remark, "Insolent, that's what you were the moment you arrived." That memory makes Mizuki cringe so hard inside, because sure, ignorance explains part of her behavior, but it doesn't explain the rest, so she has to erase the embarrassment. Harassment, when the prince tells her to speak up, she jumps in at once and blurts out to Alyssa, "Have you ever heard of a country called Japan?" Only for it to backfire and leave things hanging. To get shut down with a harsh no, and that's when Mizuki. So unless they're from the same place, and Alysa's just a civilian, she's convinced she won't be the right kind of company for a noble lady, and the thought cuts off mid-sentence. She slams the door on it, starting now. She's done giving Lady Alyssa any more of her time. She's hit with protests, people yelling that this is cruel, but Mizuki cuts through it all in an instant. She realizes the girl can't read between the lines, and Mizuki decides that kind of innocence has no place in politics while Edward keeps pushing the argument, dragging their shared pain as otherworlders into the spotlight, and insisting there has to be something they both share, while Mizuki can only see desperation in his eyes, and she can't help asking why. He'd yank his wife into the raging storm of international maneuvering, fully knowing her innocence was just another liability. He understood that. realizing that neither Elfina nor she can force a friendship to stick because every choice comes with a price. Consequences are coming fast, so she blurts out the only thing she can. She apologizes and starts explaining that. Because Alyssa talked to her like a real person, she answers the same way. She shuts the door on any more contact and tells Edward she can't give any more sympathy. Right then, the prince shot up, slammed the meeting to a close, and told the couple to thank Mizuki while they learn the ropes of diplomacy, because her words stopped his opinion of them from crashing even lower. Edward forward questions whether they've already been seen through because of how they act or why they act that way, and Alyssa doesn't even understand the word he's using. Stand until her husband barks, stand, and it's a Polly. Shoot an apology at that moment, then thank Lady Mizuki. Several days later, right there in the night barracks, Mizuki admits that Alyssa honestly feels like a kind girl on a personal level. Then the prince snaps, so why'd you cut her down so brutally? Because that decision looks cruel at first, doesn't it? Suzuki admits she pushed it too far, but argues that if the demon prince had snapped at Alyssa right there in front of the royal secretary, it would have left a formal record proving Alyssa angered him right before. Lisa finally comes back to Werezen, and now every last shred of blame lands squarely on her shoulders, turning one catastrophic failure into a shadow that won't ever let her go. By cutting off the meeting on her own without permission, Mizuki bulldozes her own disrespect straight off the table, so no one else gets slammed by a fatal political disaster, and he's betting that Edward gets it enough to explain everything to his wife later, and she flat out admits that. She thought the demon prince would cut her down on the spot, yet this whole time, he's been pushing her to handle it herself, and now that she's cut ties so cleanly, she can stay locked in like a full-on shut-in, never once running into a. Lisa again nearby, a man blurts out how much longer these people will stay, and right after that, another. Another shoots back that nobody can say for sure, and Mizuki jumps in. She says that's exactly why it feels so refreshing, because then the Count finally speaks up, and he's got a new arrival coming, a guy from Alberta. He confirms he's already there, then warns them, don't you dare forget the nightmare. He gestures toward the barracks and says, because the Count's been my friend for ages, I want you to meet her too, along with the rest of the crew. With the escape plan in hand, Glenn Darrist, the most resourceful general in Alberta, steps up to Mizuki, the other worlder, and greets him with a hard handshake, a cold stare, and eyes that scan every detail like they're hunting secrets. Her eyes snap to his the moment he questions, Mizuki, yeah. Right? She squirms under his unrelenting stare, stuck wondering what she did to deserve this, because she hasn't done a thing to provoke him, yet he's still looking at her like he's got her figured out. He stands up, clamps her hand in an iron grip, and demands, have you ever heard of Valhalla? She hesitates, then admits the truth. Valhalla is the name of her old gaming guild. Her voice dripped nostalgia, and he gave a small nod before smirking that her gear was her signature. She immediately agreed, because she didn't just wear it, she built it, crafted from her old in-game equipment, and the design of her past virtual self, forged through her own grit and imagination. They traded a few words only they could decode, packed with secret references that yanked them back to their shared history, and when he teased, don't break the enemy's spirit, she shot back without hesitation, shatter it. He says it like they've just sealed a silent pact, then drops a bomb. She's the savage sage for sure, so she freezes, stunned and totally unable to believe it, yelling who the hell he is and how he somehow knows the secret handshake. He tells her calmly but deadly serious that he's Red, her beloved beast kin from the old world, and it's only then that she realizes what all this means. It's been way too long since the last time they saw each other. Tears sprang to her eyes as the truth hit. She wasn't remembering a red cat boy at all, but a presence that had been wearing an old man's heart and wisdom all along, and the roleplay they'd done as kids had somehow slipped into the present with terrifying accuracy, right down to every detail. Urgent, after spotting this reunion, he leans in and asks her straight up if they really know each other. Then he watches her light up with pure excitement and stunned disbelief when she realizes he's a friend from her old life, a bond that was waiting long before this moment. The memories hit hard. In her past life, he was always sweet and gentle, like a cat, warm, loyal, and wrapped in fur. And with soft, honest sincerity, he tells her the truth. She's his friend. His master shaped his life in 100 ways, steering him through everything they'd lived together. So when someone asks if he knew he was an otherworlder, he shrugs it off and says he arrived 27 years ago, with zero clue. Mizuki never brought it up before, and that tiny detail blows their timelines wide open. She even says only 4 months have passed for her here, so the Glenn she knew back then couldn't have been some ancient man at all. No, he was a young guy, all fire and promise. Then the prince snaps in, reminding everyone that Alberta went through a civil war 27 years ago, cutting off high. Glenn even points out that he wasn't born yet, then calmly breaks it all down. Every brutal year of battle he survived, until his uncle finally made him a knight's general, leaving Mizuki stunned as she realizes he's living proof that real resolve, luck, and hard work actually pay off too. She's come too far to be stranded like this, even when she's left to fend for herself, and it's got her rattled. Why would Alyssa end up in a compromised spot when she had proper protection? That urgency crushes down on her thoughts, and she finally pauses to think. She notes that. He checks his ears and tail, remembering how. Back home they could roam without limits in a world that felt like a dream, soaring through the sky like birds, picking their own race, gender, and job, living as brand new people, and she catches herself thinking. Those games were their paradise. He asks whether the beast grabbed her other self, and Glenn says he finally gets why she shifted so fast. Then she nods, but admits she can't go back home, making it clear her new life isn't temporary. Argent presses on, asking about her alter ego, and the questions keep coming. She steps in to clear things up, then proves it with her magic, showing that the only real difference is her gender and her hair color. Glenn gets a quick flashback, and Argent marvels as she admits she'd love her no matter how she looks. Then Glenn starts to realize something. Rumors hit the air about their love, and everyone insisted her bond with all three guardians was more than duty, something she slammed down and denied without hesitation, setting us up for what comes next. Argent slid behind her for a tight back hug, swore it was the truth, and begged for them to get it, while she snapped and hissed. She slams it in his face. That's all you get today. Glenn lets out a heavy sigh, because of course she's got another admirer, just as annoying, just as relentless. Meanwhile, at Werksik Castle, the nobles are blabbering recklessly to each other. One man, S. He blurts in disbelief that they actually sent such an inexperienced girl to a foreign country as their emissary, while someone else leans in like, maybe once she realizes how different she is from the others, she'll finally gain some perspective, but he slams it down, insisting it's partly their own fault. Alicia's brazen, forward streak lets her bulldoze anyone who tries to stop her, and when someone admonishes her, she shrugs it off like nothing. One noble. It's like the whole world starts asking, was she really that irritating? And then the other response drops. She tells him she's a real guard, strict but warm, stepping in with rules, training, and steady support so she can survive this brutal new world, and somehow she pushes through every twist and trap she faces, proving she's tough, sharp, and nothing like the naive person they expected. This final test decides Edward and Alyssa's fate on this visit, so they're not about to back out. Elfina couldn't afford to wait. This letter from the King of Varixen demands her cooperation, and if they don't agree with the disrespect, he warns them. Varixen throws out a warning. If they can't clean up their behavior, she'll dump them both. Yet Mizuki still doesn't catch every detail right away, because when he says he took her in, Mizuki recalls that back then she was. She fully committed to this world, chasing knowledge nonstop, from life skills to biology and herbology, all the way to magic and how society ticks, then shrugs at tears like they're pointless, because her willpower is brutally unbreakable. Still, Mizuki hits walls. She can't just conjure a glowing orb, even though she built her own way to use it. The prince admits it wasn't easy, but it wasn't impossible either. Then he fires the question. Did his wife truly try to live in this world? Edward tells me the same thing. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't impossible. It slips a note to Alyssa. Piano lessons are calling, but she refuses to go, tears streaming down her face as she cries that everyone just laughs when she messes up. He goes on and on about how the piano, sir, keeps ripping into her, barking that she must never get close to the nobles who have been kind to her. His screaming gets so brutal it's downright terrifying, and it's only getting worse. He's heard the bombshell. Sir Ricardo got kicked out as guardian, and now he knows. He knows that if he truly wanted to treat and treasure her, he should have made her try to adapt through the tears. So he gives her nothing but comfort, because he can't stand the thought of her hating him. And he can't even process what Mizuki did to Lisa like that, because if the conversation kept rolling, Varixen would have gone right on, cutting in with cold, ruthless comparisons and crushing Alyssa even deeper, and he can't help wondering if that would have truly been better for his wife. Did Lady Mizuki shut the door on that possibility? Then he tells his attendant to thank Lady Mizuki for shielding Alyssa in his place, because that's exactly how he puts it. That's when the news hits him. Lady Alyssa slipped out of her chambers to hunt down Lady Mizuki, and he's left utterly stunned, so he decides not to. They told her, don't lift a finger unless you're landing real damage, because they couldn't afford to do more. Glenn keeps pushing. He grabs a wrap to guard her for his country and for his lady's sake. Mizuki tells Ravshi, right after he bakes this cake, to stop looking like he just saw a ghost, and Arjun chimes in that everything Mizuki cooks is straight up amazing. She's been cooking through the nights just to help out, because common folk bust their backs all day, and hard work absolutely deserves a proper meal, that's when. When the word hits that they're in trouble, Lady Alyssa slips into the barracks alone, and Mizuki is left completely stunned. She knows. She knows this testosterone-soaked madhouse is no place for a married noblewoman. They're convinced someone will figure out she's sneaking in just to mess around with the knights, and Arjun pulls Mizuki close, swearing he'd never do a thing like that because Mizuki is the only one for him. Mizuki decides to go see her, and Argent lanes in like, wait, are you sure? So she asks, if you still don't understand after everything I've shown you, then don't expect me to help anymore. Glenn tells everyone his country already assigned Lady Alyssa a guardian, so he'll go with her, but she fires back that, since he's the outsider, he can serve as her witness instead. Meanwhile, she can't stop replaying what he ran into earlier, especially after he blurted that Kane is darling her, and the question gnaws at her. She wonders. Alyssa is like, who the heck is Kane? And then she admits she realized she'd been rude the other day, so she's itching to apologize in person right away. Mizuki cuts in and says, you said you wouldn't give me any more time, and Alyssa just says, I came out to meet you anyway. What? Mizuki leans in and asks, do you even realize how much chaos this reckless little stop could unleash? She warns that the guards who let her slip away will be punished, and either Alyssa can wreck Varikson's name, or she'll be branded as having secret ties with their knights, and that thought hits her like a punch. Alyssa is horrified and insists she hasn't done a thing with them at all, Mizuki. Lucky insists that even if the knights bring her along, people might still suspect her, true or not. She says she figured, if I don't apologize before I go home, I'll never see them again. Then Mizuki stares, realizing how desperately she needs that apology. She's so consumed she can't even see what's happening around her. Mizuki snaps that she has to leave right now. She's stirring up trouble for everyone, so Alyssa pleads, if you won't forgive me, then I can't go. Mizuki panics, what am I supposed to do? Then she snaps at Alyssa, screaming at her to stop acting so damn self-righteous. She tells Alyssa point blank that apologizing from the heart won't suddenly make Mizuki understand. Noble society doesn't run on feelings like that, and that whole idea is just useless. The nobles don't follow the rules, they make their own, and if she won't learn that lesson fast, she'll never get a single step ahead. Mizuki strides up to Alyssa and snaps that if she still wants to be a nobleman's wife, she'd better show some real guts, like, right now. Alyssa S. Lisa's tears burst out as Mizuki finally realizes she said too much, and it hits like lightning, suddenly. Suddenly, Alyssa snaps at Mizuki, say my name again like that, and Mizuki obeys, saying. Suddenly, he yanks Mizuki into a tight hug and blurts out that Edward is the only person who's ever called her that, no lady or madam, just the name. Alyssa blurts out an apology and says she had no choice. Those nobles demanded she befriend Elfina's otherworld self, claiming it would work wonders for her husband. She really. Mizuki A actually wants to be friends, like for real, just check it. He pulls Mizuki aside and asks if she really has no friends, then Mizuki starts to respond, Ali. Alyssa admits she doesn't really have friends in Varikson. Sure, after they took her in, they assigned her a tutor at the castle, but that's not the same as having someone she'd call a friend. She soaked up lessons in makeup, dance, piano, and needlepoint, and Mizuki can't help but wonder if they really dumped all of that on her at once. Alyssa says they told her she had to train as a proper lady so she could live nice and easy with her noble guardians. But no matter what she tried, she always fell short, and noble society never let her fit in. Still, Edward was the only one who held her steady when things got brutal. He calls out that piano isn't a must, and tells them they should have actually weighed each person's preferences and natural talents. Mizuki Ike basically shrugs and points out the harsh truth, because they're both otherworlders, people don't see them as real individuals at all, do they? He nods like, yeah, they really said she's a national treasure, until she flashes a coin and presses her point. She asks a question. Mizuki asks Alyssa if she even knows what it is. Alyssa shrugs and says it's a button, totally lost, so Mizuki snaps back, starting from square one. It's a coin and explains what it is. 3 apples worth. Alyssa can't believe it, and Edward jumps in like, wait, what? She jumps in and fires back, asking if she's really being serious. Mizuki explains that because Alyssa came from another world, her common knowledge is bound to be off, and the very first thing she had to learn was how to survive here. Edward insists she spoke their language fluently, so he can't wrap his head around how she wouldn't know the basics, while Mizuki shrugs and says the whole thing just auto-translates. Even the guard blurts out that he needs to go over the free feedback from his country's guardian, then Mizuki. Then she fires a question at Alyssa, did a Varikson noble train her? And Alyssa answers without hesitation, every noble girl taught her. Mizuki reaches out her hand, basically admitting, yeah, that's where that skewed education came from. She talks to her about the medication, tells her that this must have been brutal, then snaps to Alyssa, "Let me handle it, go," and turns to Sir Edward, asking him to keep Alyssa safe. He tells him, "Yeah, I will. No way I'm messing up my priorities again this time." Later, she blurts to the prince that they never taught her any real common knowledge, and that's why they labeled her a bad student. The prince nods and says Elise's mistake probably didn't come from her at all, but from the lousy education she grew up with. Mizuki blurts that she wants to see her demon prince with her own eyes, and he shoots back that they can't even trust Varixen's request anymore. She snaps out that she's still calling him a demon prince, then vows that if things go bad, she'll make them all see just how terrifying other-worlders really are. Mizuki says Klaus is posted to guard the prince, so she can finally swing in with an extra hand. She flashes a grin and says, "I'm Mizuki," then points to the two men as her guards and the fiancé waiting at her side. She knows every Skorkin heat wave means more influence, and she can use that to her advantage, like she's already setting the pieces in place. She says the woman is the one in charge of training the other worlder and straight up asks, "So what can we do for you?" Mizuki says she went straight for the heart of it, no dancing around, then she points out that she wanted to quiz the tutor about the same old education Alyssa had been getting. Jaw tight with nerves, she snaps back that the king told them to train her, and then she dares to challenge their lesson plan. Mizuki fires a sharp question at them. Does she really want to know how common folks live? The tutor snaps back, "Of course I know, everyone knows it, because she's seen it firsthand. All day they're stuck on work and chores." Mizuki pushes harder, and she fires the question, "So if I had to start living like that tomorrow, would I actually be okay?" The tutor hesitates for a beat, then snaps back that absolutely no, she would never do something like that, not in a million years, and no respectable woman could ever live that way. It's beyond absurd, totally ridiculous. Mizuki fights back with a counter, "Sure, that's nothing new, right?" And then she snaps at the tutor too, reminding him they already told Alyssa she needed to do more than just repeat what she was taught. She'd lean in and tell Alyssa, "I know you learned it from me, but you still can't win," and then smugly claim it was just what any lady was supposed to do, while the tutor pushes on, insisting that living as a commoner has no business tutoring a girl how to be a proper lady. But Mizuki snaps back that it absolutely does. She's not teaching real wisdom at all. She's just bullying her into a pointless lesson and slapping a general knowledge label on it. Turns out the one thing every other worlder shares is nothing like this. She tells the tutor she basically stuffed Alyssa's head with facts, yet still didn't explain a thing about why she wasn't improving. She adds that by doing this, she makes the king who appointed her look terrible too, and that thought sends shivers down her spine. She staggers, collapsing down the tutor's body, and throws her hands up, begging Mizuki, "Don't tell him, please." She pleads, while Mizuki watches the tutor walk away, lost in thought. Pacing and jotting notes as the tutor slips by, she tells herself the real job today: wake them up to their sins and drag them straight to hell. Then remember this: not every otherworlder is as obedient as Alyssa. Argent watches the chaos unfold and blurts that Mizuki looks like she's having the time of her life, and the general just laughs. Apparently she's addicted to trading barbs like this. Mizuki then whips her gaze to the maids, and straight up realizes they've got zero common sense too. They won't stop bragging about how arrogant and useless Alyssa is, teasing her dancing, laughing at how clumsy she looks, calling her a clumsy chicken who could never hold her own at a ball, then going straight for the jugular. If they needed to save funding and people, they'd never waste it on some stupid kid, and Mizuki finally snaps, "Are they? Wait, aren't they banned from sharing info about their master?" The mage just shrugs, then blurts out that they were only asked to help the otherworlder. Mizuki dug in her heels. Since Alyssa hadn't outranked them, she decided they didn't have to treat her like a person worth respecting. One mage shrugs and said they'd never heard a single complaint from her, so Mizuki just sat there thinking. She confessed because she doesn't believe she's done anything wrong. Mizuki blurts out that they must have been fiercely jealous. Look at how Alice's guardian stood by her, no matter what, and then she leans in and asks, "If I ended up in disgrace, would they really have turned their backs on me?" She drops Argent and the general into the mix and asks whether they should consult the active guardians to get their take. Argent snaps at the maids, demands they get out of his sight, and coldly warns that sabotage is never pretty, no matter who's behind it. The general then lays down the rule that guardianship crosses borders and says their twisted jealousy is downright disgusting. Mizuki clocks that Alyssa almost never has anyone speak her name, and yeah, of course that's why she struggled to make friends, because she couldn't adapt to this world fast enough, and she paid for it. Mizuki then asks straight up if anyone plans to tutor the otherworlder, and they tell her that the king's command means nothing here. Then two men step in, block her, and swear she'll never say His Majesty's name again. Zuki can't help but ask if they're really ready to dance, then snaps that those big speeches only come from men who ditch their duties. They tell him we weren't doing it to hurt her, we were guarding Lady Alyssa. The general makes it crystal clear, weapons aren't the only things that can ruin a person, and it's their job to shut down anyone who dares slander her. Argent hammers the point next. Back then, they should have stopped that rebel who slipped so close, before anyone could exploit her status as an otherworlder. He knows. He realizes Alyssa only came to Elfina because she let those clingy nobles charm her and twist everything to their advantage, leaving her wide open to their petty little judgments, while the nobles insist on cozying up to Elfina's otherworlder, and that's exactly why she says she thought it would work wonders for her husband. She thinks those connections could power him socially and politically, then snaps to the guards and says they can let the maids whisper behind Alice's back if they really want, only to point out that every rumor convinces the nobility Alyssa is easy to steer, and that makes them complicit in this. Perception whether they notice it or not. The guards scramble to defend themselves, insisting Alyssa's condition was the real issue, because she had. They dug in and still couldn't adapt, and Musiki grilled them so hard that every nasty rumor was basically earned. Even Arjun can't stay quiet. He snaps that they let their own self-interest poison their duty, and the general fires back, saying that as a fellow knight, he's ashamed of them, so they scramble to make it right. They try to talk their way out of it, calling Alyssa a sweet little coward and an airhead half the time, but Masaki won't let them slide. She points out that after everything they've done to her, Alyssa still never says a single bad word about any of them. So they just teamed up to bully a scared girl. She lets that. Soak it in, this has to be the moment, because the weight is theirs to carry from here on out. She declares it's finally time to march to the king and hand him the decision, then lays bare the real story behind Lady Alyssa's tutoring and fires off sharp questions that leave nowhere to hide. If he really picked these tutors all on his own, then the king was. King snaps back that, to be real, he never fully knew how to handle her. Most other worlders can stand on their own, but Alyssa is so painfully ordinary that he only clocked his mistake after bringing her here, and he even drags Prince Illusion into the same realization, admitting that. He's basically saying they could have handled it way better, and then he drops this bomb. Alyssa will restart. She tries to begin her education, but the prince barrels in and snaps that Lord Edward and Lady Alyssa already have a solution. He just needs the king to approve their request. The king finally gives in. All right, very well. Then the prince leans in and warns him, stay away from Mizuki from now on. If you cross her, she'll bite your head right off, because every kingdom of Erickson has already lost her trust. The king freezes on the spot and blurts out, wait, are you really that dangerous? Dangerous? The prince declares he can't stop her, because Mizuki is an otherworlder with serious mage talent, and no country or authority has the power to hold her back. He leans in and warns the king to keep his head on straight, and then they turn to Edward, asking if he wants to. He's done with the marriage and pushes to annul it, and then he actually confirms, flat out, that yes, he means it. He tells them he'll be wiped out from serving as the prime minister's advisor, so Alyssa can stay at his family's estate as a civilian. Then, once everything's handled, he'll strip away his nobility so they can be together again. Alyssa replayed Mizuki's earlier scolding in her head and finally understood the mess she made. She never once respected rank during those interactions. Now she's determined to set things right and retrain herself from scratch. She refused to give up, determined to get better. And right then the prince finally threw in the towel and apologized, admitting that until this exact moment he honestly couldn't believe he could teach her right, even though he was her guardian. The guard blurts that Prince Linus was freaked out because she kept grabbing whoever was easiest, and he snaps that he's strict only so she'll learn to think for herself. But the prince waves it off like it's ancient history, dodges the real issue, and just tells himself it's fine. Tells Edward and Alyssa that it's time to strike out on their own path, and Alyssa, he's clinging to one dream now. After everything, he wants them to finally live in peace. Lisa thanks him from the bottom of her heart for always thinking of her. Meanwhile, in the Elfina barracks, Masaki's shoulders finally dropped, relief and pride crashing through him as he realized Alyssa had gotten exactly what she wanted. She can't shake the feeling that these other worlders don't just live differently, they get hit by a whole different kind of reality. And she realizes there's no escaping now. She's trapped right in the demon prince's grip. That's the end of Alyssa's headache, and she's sure Glenn got the report too. For the first time in ages, she can finally breathe easy for a day before her next. Right as she finally settles back into the groove, the knights burst in and demand she come to their house. Right now, no delay. She collapses onto the ground, wiped out, but her brain won't shut up. So much for a break, and yep, that's when we meet Christina, the girl at the center of it all. Christine beams at Mizuki, introduces herself, and practically bursts with joy. She's so happy to finally meet her. Mizuki clocks the girl as instantly adorable, and her chest loosens at the girl's earnest vibe. Then she flicks her eyes to Cain and Abel and asks, "So who is she?" And Cain and Abel just trade a quick look. Mizuki flashes her a quick grin, introduces herself to Christine, and says, "Nice to meet you too." Then she drops the bombshell that she's an otherworlder, hoping the Mizuki's explanation finally clears everything up, and then she fires back, asking Christine if some guy is harassing her and if she wants Mizuki to make him vanish. Christine hesitates, then asks. She finally found someone she could count on, and Kane shut it down fast. He gave Steppen the cold truth. They can't even tell if Mizuki's joking or serious. Right now, they're heading to the Disowned residence. Kane and Abel tell Mizuki they need her to cater Christine's 15th birthday party. Mizuki freezes. There's no way she could ever take over as their family's chef, because she's just an amateur. Kane and Abel said their chef had made the request, and then Christine leans in and lays it out plain. House Disowned and House Grandkin just can't stand each other. Their father and Viscount Edgar are cousins, but Uncle Edgar turns every little thing into a showdown, like it's life or death, and they're the only ones. With an axe to grind, she snaps, and then adds the real punchline. His whole family looks down on them. Mizuki clings to what they said back then, sharing a meal like friends, and realizes even the knights despise him. So if that's true, Count Grandkin has to be a total nightmare. They reveal they're putting together a sweet dinner party for her 15th birthday, but then Uncle Edgar writes in. He wants to celebrate with them too, and the knights admit, with zero sugarcoating, they never even invited him. He says he wants to celebrate, but Mizuki can already see through him. He's not here to enjoy, he's here to nitpick, especially the food, like he's some self-appointed food critic. Mizuki blurts out that she wants to try food from a different world. Sure, it's rare, but it's still real home cooking, and the knights laugh and reassure her that he can't complain about something he's never tasted. After all, the food she usually makes for them is absolutely incredible, and she weighs it all. Those black and white knights are nobles, and they've been eating her food without a single complaint, so yeah, it probably won't end badly. Then the knights lean in and tell Christy they don't just need catering, they need something way bigger than that. Christine's debutante ball is set for 2 weeks after her birthday, and at the very same moment, Uncle Edgar's daughter will be stepping out to debut too. Michael Edgar wants his daughter to debut with a higher rank, so he plots to drag Christine's party through the mud, but Mizuki blows it off instantly, calling it the dumbest way to try and bring someone down. Mizuki steps back as the knights beg her, pleading, "Please help us." Then it hits her. This whole household loves Christine more than she ever imagined. And she basically commands, "Don't worry, hand it to me. We've got this, we're winning." Christine demands, "Wait, win at what?" And Mizuki fires back, "At life," right as she breaks off. She shoots off a guess, pushing confidence into her voice, and then Christine's face lights up as she declares she's counting on Mizuki, only for Mizuki to look her over, note how spotless and sweet she is, and quietly vow to give it everything she's got. She starts scanning the party supplies she'll need, while her mind also drifts to what Lord Graham. And Kin's like, "Yeah, that's the one, right?" Mizuki then tells Christine, "We're having a dark talk later," and the air instantly turns cold. Christine slipped into her dance lesson, convinced that feeding him his favorite foods and keeping him quiet was only step one, because after the party, he's sticking around, and they've got plenty of questions to unravel. He figured out exactly what kind of game he'd be playing, and then it all clicked. Turns out Lord Granton's house is infamous, but they're loaded, and that money has stacked them with connections everywhere. Mizuki starts wondering if his daughter is secretly an evil little menace, and the knights shut it down. She's not truly good or evil, she's just a full-on brat. Mizuki can feel the daughter is getting dangerously close to that tired third-rate villain cliché, but she's not the version this world promised Mizuki, not even close. The knights press Mizuki about her old world, where criminals everywhere, and she grins, saying it was packed with nothing but amusement. Suzuki tells them to start right away, write down every way Lord Grandkin could harass them, and then he could even try to. He tried to ruin Christine's name by twisting it into something like his own daughter, hoping his followers would turn their backs on her completely, until the knights caught wind and thought, this is too far, because they knew he could block her from getting a dress, shoes, or even stepping into the ball, and then his daughter might. They might even go for Christine's escort, only they hadn't even. And the second they think about it, that man, giving off pure bad vibes, so they say. Mizuki lines in and says, "If you're scared or worried, you can escort me too," and the knights point out that her escort is a Royal Guard knight, then shut down the whole request, because they've already been judged as unworthy anyway. Mizuki demands how they could possibly look down on them, and they snap back, it's because they're always mixing with commoners, and Mizuki can't help but wonder how. How they'd treat a peasant like her, and how there was only one other. And then there's the real headache. What about the third generation, Mizuki Asuka? Mizuki asks what that means, and the knights break it down. Elfina's peerage is tied to merit. If a family keeps proving themselves, even commoners can earn a noble title. But if they fail to raise their rank by the third generation, they get demoted or the title vanishes for good. Mizuki can't help comparing it to a game leaderboard, because staying on top demands constant effort from both the king and the whole country. And yeah, it sounds brutal to keep that rank alive. She tells them to hold on, then asks if they're really risking their title, and they reassure her, "We're fine for now." But trouble is brewing for House Grankin, and Mizuki suddenly clocks it. The dark rumors he's heard must be about him marrying his daughter. Lord Grankin could want Christine gone, because if he slips his daughter into a top house, that's a lifeline for his own family, and then he'd sell her off to the highest bidder. He'd chase Christine with a desperation far worse than anyone ever expected. She slips up and hints she knows they're connected to him, then freezes mid-sentence, like she's counting every word, before forcing herself to keep going, because there's one last possibility they can't afford to ignore. They swallow hard, audibly, the second she brings up Lord Grant. The Grandkin might even go as far as hiring someone to wipe Christine off the map entirely. Every single one of them freezes, faces draining of color as the words sink in and hit like a gut punch, eyes wide, mouths hanging open, hearts hammering while their brains scramble for answers. And one of them blurts out that maybe this isn't just harassment anymore, maybe they've just stepped past the line and into something way darker, and she tells them. She says, steady and unshakable, this isn't just harassment, it's a real crime. Then she calls it out as a plan meant to hurt, asks straight up if they're scared and if they'll stop, and you can tell they're not exactly bracing to back down. Their faces burn with pure determination, not fear, and they're ready to do anything to make sure Christine wins. She leans in and tells them, Christine's got this, everyone knows it's already decided, and that's that. They all grin like her win is already locked in, shoulders squared with fresh fire, and they tell her, today is their sister's 15th birthday, a day no nasty scheme will ever stain, and they're not letting anyone ruin it for her. She tells them that it's the spirit, praising their loyalty and grit, and they only manage a small, relieved smile. Her confidence makes it feel safe. Later that night, right by Rick's cafeteria, they huddled together over a steaming meal, lantern light washing their faces in a cozy glow. Every bite tasted unreal. One of them blurted out that he'd never had anything like it, and still, somehow, it tasted exactly like home, pulling soft nostalgia from their hearts and putting small smiles on everyone's lips. Mizuki says she thought it was just a quick test run for the dinner party, just a taste and look check, but somehow it snowballed into something way more fun and satisfying than she ever expected. The prince watches from afar, says he heard she's tackling a whole feast of otherworld dishes, and he can't wait to see how she pulls it off, and then she finds. Her eyes light up at every glimmer, colors blaze, aromas hit like a knockout, as she sets the plates down in front of them, and then he quietly adds with sharp thought that poison testers are everywhere too, a chilling reminder of what's at stake when you serve unknown food to nobles. You can spot them across the world, and yes, across plenty of countries. They keep digging in, and the food tastes so damn good they can't stop eating. The prince tells her that if she pulls ingredients from the royal farm and turns her focus to the presentation, she can serve it at a royal banquet, right up there with courtly excellence, and she thanks him politely, admitting that she'd already been. While he's eating, he brings it up, then suddenly asks her, "Do you have my permission to carry on with your plans?" He tells her that thanks to Kind, he already has a full summary, and that she needs to help them, and the second it clicks, she realizes he had every detail figured out before he even stepped through the door. He says this time nobody's coming to run in and save you, and hands her the whole job, so she shoots back, "You mean I'm the one who has to ask for help?" And he confirms, "Yes, I will." He'll let her borrow the rank and reach of anyone who steps in to help, including his two knights, making it crystal clear that how far they go depends only on her talent and drive, but she's left utterly confused At first, responsibility bears down on her like an anvil, then she breaks into a tiny smile, like she's found her courage. A mischievous grin snaps onto her face as she teases him as her demonic prince, loving the way his power clicks with their bond. Then she yanks out a sheet of paper and orders him to review her meal, and he immediately quits. When he doubts this is meant as proof, he admits she's brilliant and says he figures he's the first one to jump in. Then she giggles and assures him he nailed her intentions perfectly. He then drops the rumor that Lord Daybold's daughter is set to debut and tells Mizuki she has to show up to the ball as a debutante too, because he's got the details locked in, right up to the point he can't quite finish the sentence. She asks if that's okay, and he reassures her that as her guardian, he'll formally introduce her to everyone so she's fully recognized and respected. She thanks him, and then she starts too. She finally realizes she can stay right by Christine's side at the ball, and the relief hits like a warm blanket. She clings to that plan for a real sense of purpose, then asks for permission to use the transport circle so she can zip between locations, and when he warns her this food show is expensive, she fires back that her preparations need better quality dairy, and she thanks him, fully feeling empowered to handle the legit on her own. Logistics, he presses her about whether she's going to sever it for the ingredients, and she nods, saying she is, then tells him how that region is famous for dairy production, all the way down to what it even produces. Even the seal on her cup is a cow, so it's perfect for her cooking needs. He nods along and says that if she shares today's meal then. He finally lets her use the transport circle, and she beams as she thanks him for the reservation. Argent and Klaus come bursting in, fired up and ready to help, and she immediately clocks it. They're craving attention, aren't they? They lock eyes and catch that spark in each other's gaze, then she asks, "Would you mind helping me?" And they shoot back with pure excitement, practically vibrating to join in and jump into the action. Abel joins the prep and spits. Lord Grandkin is a filthy worm that lives on dirty money, but if we put on a flawless show, we'll outshine him so hard we'll metaphorically wipe him out, flipping his schemes against him. Argent leans in and asks if she wants to catch a few dance lessons before the ball, then shrugs it off like, "Don't worry, step on my toes if you have to," and that kindness hits her right in the chest as she breaks into a smile. Realizing she won't be short on help for this all-important mission. Watching everyone move with pure energy and joy around her, she figures it means they'll all have fun, and that she can finally meet her friends' expectations, because with her allies backing her, the pressure feels way lighter. So she sparks a little game. If you finish tonight's dinner, you have to fill out an evaluation of the meal, a playful trick to keep them locked in and fully invested. She clocks it instantly. Laughter and chatter in the cafeteria are spiraling out of control, and panic spreads through the group, but Argent just leans back and blurts out, "Why does it look like Mizuki is having the time of her life?" And that wraps up today's video, so drop a like, hit subscribe, and comment if you want part 2.